Nat.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence. We cover it live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We attempt to get out one edited video every day about the Alberta independence movement. If you'd like to help us, please like the video. It kind of helps break the algorithm and the censorship. And if you can subscribe, that's what kind of helps us keep doing this work. Okay, let's get into it.
And also, thank you for being here once again. And please do subscribe. It really does help us out. But also leave a comment because we do read all your comments live. If you want yours read live specifically, please put a capital C in front of it so I know which ones are not just replying to each other in the comments, because sometimes it gets a bit hard to figure out which ones to read and which ones not to.
Yeah, and if this is your first time watching the show about Alberta independence, we always start with the petition and the signatures until we get that 177,000. I think that is by far the most important issue. After that, we kind of go into the news, different strategies that the movement's taking, different major figures that have made statements. Then we go into Canadian news that's related to the Alberta independence movement. I'll say before we start the show today, Pierre Poilievre went on trigonometry. He says all the right things. The problem with that guy is he's a day late and a dollar short. He won't take a stance until it's safe to take that stance.
And we will make an edited video with our opinions going over the interview and seeing what he has said and where he continues to fall short.
Yeah, if he had a majority government as the national politician, he could probably fix the country. The problem is the system's rigged against conservatives in general. So at best, he's going to get a minority. And a lot of those policies he won't be able to implement. It's a damn shame. And that's why the Alberta independence movement is really the only choice for real firm change for a future for not only yourself, but your children.
And that's why we continue to talk about it, because ever since the truckers' convoy and that tiny shred of hope that I think a lot of Canadians felt, it hadn't felt that same feeling or vibe. I hate that word, but vibe before. And since learning about and then continuing to talk about the Alberta independence movement, it just feels like an energy that is missing everywhere else in Canada.
Yeah, it really does. I seen somebody in one of our comments, everybody's wondering how many signatures there are. Somebody said, oh, we're at 400,000 signatures. Hopefully they're an insider and we actually have 400,000. Yeah, I think we either have a lot of signatures or we have a little. The problem is the weather is working kind of against us right now.
Yeah, and it's always better to have more than less and have the mentality that you have less, because I continuously say shenanigans, some could be invalidated, they could bring up excuses to say, oh, we have to count way less. So
it was funny that you mentioned the truckers convoy, because during the Poilievre interview, that's on trigonometry. That was the first thing he kind of led off with. But I remember at the time, it took a long time for him to come around to that movement. And when he did, he didn't take a very firm stance. Once it was safe, that's when he came out and did it. And if he would just come out ahead of a lot of these things and take a little bit more risk, he would reap a lot of the rewards when you take shaky stances or things that might be risky to take. People have respect for that. He
did the same thing with the trans kids. And when Billboard Chris was trying to get him to say something about it, I remember because we were kind of working with Billboard Chris or volunteering with Billboard Chris, he kept trying to get Pierre's attention and he just did not want anything to do with it until it became popular with other MPs and other people that were also talking about it. Then he decided to also speak.
I think Poilievre's going to be in our national coverage here on the second half of the show, but let's get into the petition. What's going on with that? What's hampering it? What's not hampering it? The good, the bad, the ugly, I guess.
Yes, so that's from Rise of Alberta, quote, big news for Albertans who haven't signed yet, and this is great as well. Canvassers will now come directly to your home or workplace to collect your signature. Share this far and wide and click the link below to have a canvasser come to you. So it's nb.stayfreealberta.com, and then there's a button there to request someone to show up so you can sign. So that is great news, because we have been talking about the impediments that a lot of the canvassers and a lot of the people that want to sign have been facing, not just because of the weather, but because of how hard it is to stand in the middle of the road or in the middle of the sidewalk and try to get just passersby to be interested in what you're saying.
Yeah, and we just did an edited video on this subject, on canvassers, what's the struggles kind of facing them, the weather, independent businesses. It's hard to get into high trafficked areas. It's good to see new strategies coming up here. We kind of have been doing that the last few shows, talking about what can we do to get into these high traffic areas. Sending canvassers to people's homes is absolutely crucial. I think this is going to be massive, especially for a lot of older people. It's hard for them to get out, especially in the winter.
So this is the website Stay Free Alberta, and this is where you can see where to sign or to request to sign as well.
Again, you can leave it here for just a second. This is an important site. If you haven't been here, go there. We profiled this on our edited video. If you want to sign up to be a canvasser, you can do that there. If you want to sign the petition, it will show you where to go, or you can request a petitioner to come to your home. Also, I didn't mention on the edited video though, there's a donation button. And I know there's a lot of people outside of Alberta kind of supporting this movement here in Mexico, in the United States, and especially other provinces like BC, like Saskatchewan. If you're not in Alberta and you can't canvass, donations are a great way to kind of help this movement. They're going to need it, especially after the 177,000 signatures, when the government really kind of amps up their censorship and really starts taking this thing seriously. There's going to be major pushback.
And I'll also say, talking about becoming a canvasser, I said it in the video we just released today, but it is also a good idea if you can and if you have the time to go through the process to become a canvasser. Again, there's still about 2 and a bit months to go. Just become a canvasser and go to events or family gatherings or whatever you are doing around your daily life anyways. You can just get 2 or 3 signatures, but if more and more people do that, then that's also a better way to get signatures rather than trying to get a bunch of signatures all at the same time, which is a lot harder.
Yeah, and I do read all the comments on the edited videos, and we try to read them all live on the show. That being said, I did make a suggestion. I know independent businesses don't want to lose business, so they typically don't want independence people in front of their store with their petition. It's a shame, but I had suggested donating donuts and coffee. Petitioners can't actually do that. It's considered a bribe, and it's against the regulations in their training.
But if somebody else who's not a canvasser is sitting there with donuts and coffee, I don't know how they would.
Yeah, that would be a way around
or
it.
just bring donuts and coffee to the... Oh, no, you can't.
You can't. That's the thing. And man, yeah.
I'll put a note on the video.
But I'm always trying to brainstorm new things, and I'm really glad that they're actually sending canvassers out to people's homes now. I think this is going to be huge. Let's get into the next article. I think it's related.
The next post. Here from Yukon Strong, quote, and again, it is super cool. Stay Free Alberta has created a DoorDash for Alberta independence. People are throwing sign-up parties at home and in the workplace. Visit the link to find a canvasser near you or to get a canvasser to visit you. And again, I'll continue to say, the more people that become canvassers, the more 2 or 3 signatures that can be collected instead of trying to reach a wide net of people. That becomes harder, especially in a province like Alberta, where a lot of people live rurally, or there's just very spread out. Even within the cities, it's very spread out, and the freezing cold as well.
Yeah, this is great. This is like a double punch here. They're sending canvassers out, but they're also saying have work parties. If you have big gatherings, church groups where canvassers will be welcome, you can now request a canvasser through the organization. So you know they're a legitimized canvasser with a badge number and they've gone through the training, which is absolutely fantastic. I think this will be great, especially for churches in the winter, because I was trying to think in the summertime, there's a lot of outdoor gatherings, especially in Calgary, but in the wintertime, especially with the weather they're experiencing now, there's not a lot of outdoor gatherings. So what are you going to do? Churches are a great place. A lot of independent churches are right in line with the Alberta independence movement. If you have somebody leading that church that has enough backbone and enough balls to kind of invite a canvasser out, that would be absolutely fantastic.
But I'll also say, like, if after your hockey league or when you go out with friends or whatever, if you are already a canvasser or you have someone within that group, it actually becomes easier than having to wait to find somebody that is a canvasser or to find where to go sign. If you are able to do it within your own community as well, then even if you get 1 or 2 signatures, it adds to the total.
Well, I was reading Marty up north. He gives updates because every day he does canvassing. He has a set location he goes to, but he was saying he's there for a couple hours today. There was a lineup, but he only managed to get 10 signatures. It is really slow to get signatures, even for people that are really well known. So we really need to have this kind of push. If you're thinking, like, I don't want to go sign this petition in public, maybe you're scared. I do understand the Canadian government has bred fear into the Canadian people through the truckers convoy, through canceling bank accounts, through the jibby jab passport. I mean, you name it, they've done it to the Canadian people. But if you can request somebody to come to your house, hopefully that takes some of the fear away.
And here we see from Marty up north, this is from, I believe, a day ago or 2 days ago, but it says signature update. I got 19 today and Karen got 25. Between the two of us, we are now at 727 signatures. We're each averaging about 4.5 signatures per hour, which means we will each require about 220 hours of volunteer work to collect our respective goal of 1,000 signatures. It's not easy, but it's worthwhile. Life is, but but nothing worthwhile is ever easy. But again, this is why I say if there's more canvassers collecting 2 or 3 signatures instead of thinking they have to go get 1,000, I mean, Marty is very dedicated and it is a great source to know how things are going. But if more people just get 1 or 2 instead of having to think, oh, I need 1,000 or I need to average 4.5 per hour, then that also builds the momentum even without thinking about it.
Well, I'm glad Marty is kind of posting this graph showing how many signatures he's getting. He's probably the most well-known canvasser. He actually has a bit of a lineup when he goes now. That being said, it's very slow going, especially in rural areas. I've talked to other people that have done canvassing for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the United States. That was a shit show because the Democrats were funding a campaign to get fake signatures, so he would be disqualified in a lot of states. Ultimately, he went a different route. That being said, it's very slow going. So the fact that they have a lot less canvassers than they thought, I think they're sitting around 10,000 canvassers. The initial hope was 50,000 canvassers. So if you're thinking about canvassing, you haven't done it yet, now is a good time. The weather should be warming up here, so it is going to be a lot easier coming up.
And again, I will say, even if you get 2 or 3, at least you're adding to.
Well,
and it can be from people you already know or people you have these conversations with already. If there's one person within that conversation that can get the signatures, then that just speeds up the process.
Well, and again, I'll just repeat, we do start with all the canvassing news, what's going on with getting the signatures, because that is the most important part. We got a few more articles on that, and then we'll get into the Alberta independence news. I know it's post. I'm going to say articles, so just let me do it.
But also, I will say, don't forget to bring 2 pieces of ID and also proof of Alberta residence, because you do need that before you sign.
Yeah.
And I keep forgetting to say that each time we talk about this. But also from Marty up north, he says, quote, collecting petition signatures is just one of the early stages of this battle. By becoming a volunteer or a canvasser, you're joining an army. We need to train that army for the battles that we're about to face. If you've collected 100 signatures or more and you want to elevate your game, send him a DM. He has a proposal.
Yeah, and in just a minute, Marty up north actually laid out every stage of what it's going to take for Alberta to gain its independence. We're going to go over what exactly that is. The signatures are the first stage, and nothing else can happen without that. That's why this is so crucial and so bloody important right now, especially because we're unsure if we even have the 177,000 right now. We could be under or we could be way over. And it seems like the leadership of the movement is really trying to push canvassers right now. Maybe they're way over and they just want to try to hit that million. I hope that's the case.
So. But again, always have that mentality that you still need more. I think that's the best game plan, to always think you're just gonna have to go till the end and not become complacent, because as we've seen in many other movements, many other elections, etc., people say, oh, there's a lot of momentum behind it. Well, I guess that's fine if I can't go, if I don't have to make an extraordinary effort because they've got it covered. And that is always what gets people to lose and to be overly confident.
Yeah, and I'm the one that gathers the articles for the daily shows. And I will say, when it comes to the canvassing part of the show, Marty up north is an absolute great resource for us because he gives updates on canvassing. He's putting statistics on like how many signatures he's able to gather a day. So for the opening segment, thank you for everything he's been posting. It's been a big help to our show, and I'm sure other shows as well.
And we are also trying to work on getting an interview with him or getting to speak with him soon. So stay here for that as well. Yeah. Not today, but soon.
Okay.
However, I have been talking about the importance, especially of young Albertans, and showing that they care and showing that they're also in this. And I'm glad to see more and more young people also speaking up, becoming canvassers. We've shown 2 of them during the convoy saying we're doing this for our own future. And I think the motivation still needs to be sparked a little bit more amongst the young people.
Well, what I want to see happen, because the national government has taken their stance. Albertans are traitors. This Alberta independence movement needs to be stopped, and they need to make sure it can never happen again. In order to counter that, we need people putting videos like this out, standing up, being proud, making it cool to be independent and support this independence movement.
From CDN Wasteland says, quote, meet 18-year-old Justice. She just signed and here's why. Our kids are fine. And hopefully, again, this motivates more and more kids. And
Well, and I understand how hard it is to be on camera because when we first started our original channel, it was at the BC border with the truckers convoy. And we went out there and we just started videotaping and interviewing people. But we were so scared to be on camera the first time. We ended up just using B-roll and doing a voiceover. Eventually, we got brave enough to be on camera. And now look at us today. Two idiots on camera.
Hey guys, I want you to meet Justice. She just turned 18 years old, and one of the first things she wanted to do was come in and sign the referendum petition. Justice, why do you want to sign?
Well, I wanted to sign because living prices are quite high in Alberta. Trying to get by as a young adult is quite difficult. And I believe that Alberta would be able to sustain ourselves with some oil and gas and our farmland. And I feel like with education, people in Quebec can get scholarships and they get their education paid for. But in Alberta, we will have to pay, which is quite pricey. And I want to go to Old College for a vet tech program. It's like 17 grand, something like that.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's great. Positive. Oh, you can bring her back up just for a second. And it's great to see Albertans. I mean, they understand the U.S. are our cousins to the south. They don't want to be the 51st state. They want to be an independent nation, but they understand the importance of good trade with the U.S. And even her here, she's wearing a Tennessee shirt. So good on her. And that was a great statement for an 18-year-old to kind of stand up and say, I do support oil and gas. I haven't built into this this green hoax or this green climate agenda that the federal government's trying to sell everybody.
And I will say the youth are a lot smarter than a lot of people, I think, give them credit for. And I know this because I worked at 2 different high schools in Vancouver with some international students, but also with some locals. And I will say, once you start asking them, people think they're not politically motivated, that they don't care. They understand what's going on with their future. They just don't see a way out. And this would be a great way to channel them towards a way out, at least in Alberta, but also gain momentum from other provinces where young people are seeing that they're not going to be able to have a future. I mean, that's what I saw. They're not going to be able to have a future or buy a house or even go to college or even pay for groceries or have rent an apartment. Not everything is becoming more and more impossible. We also showed another, I believe she was Canadian, I don't remember if she was Albertan, but talking about the living standards and situation that she's going through just by being a young person in Canada. So I think those voices have a lot more to add, and I will look back at the great Charlie Kirk and I will say, if you can build a little bit more momentum of that type of, oh yes, we want to let young people know that it's important to have faith, have a family, and strive for a better life instead of just settling with mediocrity that Canada is. I think that could also give the movement a really big push.
Yeah. Also, the youth are the ones that typically have gatherings with each other, whether it's a
Not
party.
that much anymore, but
well, they go to coffee shops together. They do stuff in groups, and they still do it. Especially when you look at older people that are they're caught up in their jobs or the same mundane things every day. I know that's us. I rarely go outside the house. We're constantly doing things with the Alberta independence movement, making videos, editing. But young people, they can call a canvasser if they know there's going to be a big group, and that would mean a lot of signatures. And if they're willing to be on camera like that girl was there, it can really change the dynamic. Like you mentioned, Charlie Kirk. We're gonna talk about a debate coming up. It's probably one of the bigger Alberta independence movement debates that have happened so far, and it would be nice to see a push organically happen amongst the youth, challenging other people that maybe support nationalism and have this debate. I think all the great talking points and all the momentum is on the side of independence, and that's why a lot of nationalists don't want to debate this subject.
And unfortunately, a lot of people think of younger people or college students or even high schoolers, as being all progressive, all crazy lunatics on the left. The thing is, those are the loudest ones. However, the majority of kids, I think, have a different switch and don't think that way, but they've been silenced by censorship and by being scared to speak up because they've seen the consequences of what adults have had to go through. But I think there's enough of them now to be an even louder voice for this.
Yeah, well, you've seen kind of what happened in the States with the youth when they started speaking up, when they started to be debate, and with the national government calling Albertans traitors. When they put that label on the youth, there's a way to kind of push back and be a rebel there. And I hope the youth kind of embrace that, and that's what happens, because that would make everything they want to message on a national level against Albertans, especially the youth. They have to be fearing the youth vote in this thing.
And Alberta independence, I mean, it should be, I think, seen as the counterculture to the mainstream and to the current government and what's been going on for the past, I would say, even more than 10 years, but about 15 years now.
It really is the counterculture, and we don't sell any merchandise for Alberta Independence or anything, but I really do like the black logo of Alberta. Somebody should make more of that stuff where it says independence or something on there. I think it would be very, what do you say, popular with the youth vote. Yeah. Okay, let's go into
just an idea.
Let's go into a few comments, and then we'll go back into what did you call it? Posts?
Posts.
Okay.
Yes.
I always say articles. So.
Literally on top of the post, it says post. You're old. You don't know. Sydney says, I saw the interview. Pierre was spot on. And again, he sounds great. He knows what's going on most of the time, but he reacts about 2 years too late.
Yeah, he's a day late and a dollar short. I love every single thing he says. He's spot on. The issue was he should have been saying all that stuff in the last election. He was saying some of it. But
Going to podcasts right before the last election too. Talking to, independent media more. He could have been doing all of this, and yet now he's doing it when it mostly won't have any effect.
Well, yeah, because they have this Alberta independence talking point against nationalists. Carney's going to use that. He's going to use TDS. I mean, I really wish Pierre Poilievre was doing this messaging during the last election. It was the perfect time to go to international media, and that's why he lost this thing. And he seems to always pick the right move when it's extremely safe and it's just a little bit late. Even if he gets into office now, I mean, Carney's driving Canada off a cliff, and
even more.
And at best, Poilievre's going to get a minority government. So how much change is he actually going to be able to make? Everything he diagnosed there would work if he had a majority government. I just don't know if he can get it.
Aside from everything having already been legislated and it taking, I would say, about 10 to 20 years, a generation to actually see a change if the Conservatives get in and get a majority vote. But right now, those are too many ifs.
Yeah, we're gonna make a video on it. I was yelling at the TV, just saying, "Man, why wasn't he doing this on the last election? Why is he doing this now?" It's like
that's the frustration.
It's extremely frustrating,
and that's why Alberta Independence, and that's why we support so much Alberta Independence, because it looks like the only way out. It is the only way out.
It's even more frustrating because Mark Carney's literally driving Canada off a cliff, but they've been so propagandized, and the political system in Canada is so left leaning and set up and rigged that, man. You have somebody right there you can vote for that can potentially fix the country, yet he has almost no opportunity to do that because of the way the system is set up. And that's why this Alberta independence push is so bloody important.
Sydney also says, for the last time, neither Pierre nor Danielle have mandates to support Alberta independence. No, they don't. And they are federal politicians, but at the same time, then why continue to focus on them if the only solution right now, at least for Alberta, seems to be independence?
Yeah, and I'll continue to call people out when I don't like what they do. I absolutely hated when Pierre Poilievre made that national speech, and it kind of turned me against him. But at least he put his flag in the ground, and you know where he stands. Danielle Smith, on the other hand...
And he kind of has to. I mean, we do understand that. It's just frustrating.
Danielle Smith, on the other hand, is kind of walking this line, and a lot of Alberta independence people think that she's like firmly on their side as much as a national politician can be. There is a different vein of people in the independence movement that thinks she's sabotaging it, and I happen to be in that movement. I think she's sabotaging this petition with all these questions that are really going to muddy the waters and make the one question that's important about Alberta independence unclear. And the number two thing is the budget. When you come over budget, even though Alberta is extremely prosperous, on the same year you're going to have this Alberta independence vote, it's going to make a lot of people that are non-politically minded and don't know a lot about the economy saying, can Alberta actually stand on its own? If you do the research, it can obviously stand on its own. It will be one of the most wealthy democratic nations in the world if it can get its independence.
And that's the thing. Wild Rose Republic of Alberta says anything federal is a waste of energy. We need to focus elsewhere. However, we do still need to be conscious of what they're doing, saying, and the censorship that's incoming, and ways they will continue to try and sabotage the independence of Alberta.
Yeah, what something that's been brought to my attention was the Buffalo Party, which is now the Republican Party of Alberta. We're going to make a video on this. We're still doing a little bit of research about it. That being said, if I still lived in Canada, we used to live in British Columbia. I was born there. The government just went too far for me, stepped on every single red line. It took us 4 years, but eventually we saved enough to move to Mexico.
I'm from Mexico.
Yeah. That being said, if I still lived in Canada, I may reluctantly still vote Poilievre because you need this Alberta independence vote to go forward. If Carney gets a majority government, I don't know how much power he's going to have. He's going to have the ability to block this vote. I'm sure he's going to do every dirty trick in the book to kind of stop it at a certain point. And it's not, Poilievre doesn't even necessarily have to win. We just need to block Mark Carney from getting a majority government. Number one, so the Alberta independence vote can go forward. But number two, he's got 3 major censorship bills sitting on the shelf ready to go into legislation when he has the votes. You're going to end up looking like the UK, where they're arresting tens of thousands of people for hate speech that they're posting online, which is not hate speech at all. It's simply free speech.
And Sydney says, I'm full on independence, but Danielle and Pierre are my backup. Besides, I like them. And again, if there wasn't an Alberta independence movement, I would say, yes, I like Pierre and I like Danielle. I don't know how, I mean, Danielle has a lot better chance to continue to do good if there wasn't this movement. But because there is, that changes the perspective a little bit. And with Pierre, when he won the leadership race years ago, we did a video on our original channel and we pointed out the exact same things we're still saying today. That was 5-6 years ago. Yeah. We were still 4 years ago. We were still saying, well, he's always still too late with some of the things he speaks up about. He speaks up about them eventually, but it'd be way more useful to speak up earlier. Yeah,
but he is a good safety net. And I had been saying that constantly, that Pierre and Danielle Smith were the safety net for the Alberta independence movement. That being said, I wish they would just not push so hard against the Alberta independence movement, especially Poilievre. And when it comes to Danielle Smith, I mean, she's walking that tightrope, and I don't know if she's trying to sabotage it intentionally or what's going on there, but it raises a lot of questions around her, at least for me. And I know it's not just me, because even Jeff Rath is bringing up a lot of these questions online about Danielle Smith.
There's another comment from Sydney, but for some reason I can't bring it up, but says Venezuela is the Canada Post of oil suppliers. Alberta is the Amazon next day to your door, no military required. And it would be so easy for the U.S. to also do those trade deals with Alberta once they're independent. However, right now the federal government has a chokehold on it and will continue to.
Alberta's ready to be a $1 trillion or multi-trillion dollar economy if you take all the restrictions off of it. Right now it's $300 billion economy, and it's still holding up Canada, even with all the restrictions and everything the federal government is doing to sabotage that great nation, or what will one day be a great nation.
Soon be.
Okay, let's go back into some posts. Posts, that's what it is?
Yes, look, it says it up there, posts. That's what it's called. From Mark Nixon, quote, a new website just launched documenting everything about Mark Carney, policies, connections, decisions, receipts. If you want the full record in one place, go to carneywatch.ca.
Yeah, and
this is great.
This is crucially important because a lot of the Alberta independence movement is going to be about the economics of Alberta. That's how you kind of sway the moderates. But a rigged political system is another part of that. But one other big chess piece is the corrupt politicians, and Mark Carney is the most corrupt politician of all.
For a long time.
And when we get into the Canadian section, it's becoming extremely clear how corrupt he is, how he's funneling money to Brookfield Asset Management, and thereby doing that, putting money into his own pockets. I mean, people are following him very closely, so he just doesn't seem to care. He understands Trump's going to get him elected off of TDS, so he's just going to keep aligning him and his buddies' pockets.
Yeah, and it says Mark Carney promised fiscal discipline. He delivered the opposite. He also said judge him on grocery prices, and I feel like once the rebate comes, well, they're going to start judging him on the allowance that Big Daddy government gave to everybody, and they'll completely forget about the situation, which is exactly what he's intending to do with that rebate.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot more into Mark Carney in the second half of the show. Actually, Carney and Poilievre, I think, are a lot of the second half of the show. But let's continue with Alberta here.
From Harrison Faulkner, quote, Alberta independence debate featuring Jason Kenney and Bruce Pardy on March 5th, so tomorrow at 12 p.m. Mountain Time. The resolution, do you agree that the province of Alberta should cease to be a part of Canada to become an independent state? They're going to do it on Harrison Faulkner's channel.
This is going to be an absolutely fantastic debate. I am huge into debates. She hates it because I watch them nonstop. A lot of them are American debates. It's hard to find nationalists to debate this issue against independence people. Bring them back up if you can. The gentleman that's doing kind of defending the independence position knows it well. So I'm confident in him. And Jason Kenney is a former politician in Alberta who I absolutely want to get on the record in a debate where he can't weasel his way out and he actually has to answer some of these questions. And I also want to see his talking points because he's a nationalist that is from Alberta. So it's going to be interesting. It's a rare case where you get somebody like Jason Kenney actually willing to debate this thing. It's mainly crazy liberal nationalists that have completely different talking points. So I'm expecting a bit of a different look from Jason Kenney. This will be fantastic to kind of know, because he had to do his research on this thing, to know what are going to be the talking points of nationalists that don't want independence within Alberta, because more of these debates will be coming up in the future. A lot of his talking points, I'm sure the national media is going to start rolling out soon as well. So it's good to be able to prepare for that. This is going to be fantastic. Harrison Faulkner is absolutely fantastic as well. He's from Juno News. Juno News is great. So surprisingly, I wasn't subscribed to his channel. I went and subscribed just so I would get the update for tomorrow's debate.
We're also not following him on here, so let's follow him there. Because we have personal accounts too, so I do follow him on that one. But yeah, it's great on Harrison for being able to set this up. And I do think what's most needed is more of that conversation, more of those both talking points for both sides to be laid out for everybody to see and to also comment on.
Well, to this point, it's been all Marty up north arranging these debates. I mean, he has to pester people and bully them until they're finally break down and say, okay, I'll debate. And then they don't show up for the debate 2 or 3 times. And then they finally show up, they get blown out of the water. And then no other liberal wants to take their place after. Mm-hmm. So they're scared because they realize, there's no good talking points.
Side, yeah. But speaking of Marty up north, and you said this a bit earlier, he says, quote, here's a concise high-level summary of the steps for Alberta to become independent based on the Clarity Act and the Supreme Court's secession reference.
Okay, and this is absolutely fantastic because I wasn't even sure of this. I'm educating myself as we go. So sometimes I'll say things that are wrong, like give donuts and coffee to petitioners. They can't actually take them. But let's just read the highlighted black part so we know each step, because there's quite a few steps.
Yes, so step 1, hold a clear referendum. Step 2, secure a clear majority. Step 3, appoint negotiation teams. 4, negotiate the terms. 5, build replacement systems. 6, finalize financial settlement. 7, secure constitutional amendment. And this step is simply a required formality. I think that last one, if negotiations succeed and produce an accord, the amendment cannot be reasonably denied, as refusing it would violate the constitutional principles of democracy and federalism established by the Supreme Court. It codifies the negotiated agreement and makes independence lawful. In other words, it just removes the word Alberta from the Constitution.
Okay, can you read step 7 there? Because this is the one that somewhat concerns me, and there have been some crazy liberals making videos about this, and nobody's really addressed this properly. I did see Marty up north, but he didn't completely take this apart. So just read that for me.
So step 7 is secure constitutional amendment. Once terms are agreed, secession is formalized via a constitutional amendment, typically the 750 general formula, though an unanimity may be debated for core matters.
Yeah, and I think this may be the one step that is the linchpin for the liberals. At least that's what it seems like, because the political system's so rigged. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get past that. That being said, we'll deal with it once we get to it. There's going to be so much momentum, but this is also why it's important to do this referendum now while Trump is in office, because if Newsom or somebody else is in there, they're not going to respect the vote, and Carney's just going to try not to recognize it at a certain point, or he's going to try to pull something on that step 7. If Trump recognizes this thing, puts a ton of political pressure on the Canadian government simultaneously, the independence movement puts pressure on it, I think we'll be able to get past step 7. I think Trump's going to be crucial when we get to step 7. But I would like to hear Marty up north or some other people that are more educated than I am talk about that step 7. Go back to that if you can.
Oh, I closed it.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
But I will also say, like him or not, with Trump, I mean, right now he is and will be continue to fall on the side of Alberta independence. And again, they have been talking to at least some people in the administration. They tried, the national news media in Canada tried to smear the organizers and the people behind the Alberta independence movement, and they were able to come out on top. We continue to play that clip from Jeff Rath where he said, well, what's wrong with it? We can't talk to them. But it is important to have them on your side because, again, like it or not, the U.S. is a superpower. And right now, it has Canada on its naughty list, essentially. So it's a great opportunity as well to kind of give a
Well, and as great as that
finger to Canada.
As great as that Pierre Poilievre interview was today, it was a softball interview, and it's very obvious from that interview. The national media in Canada is going to create division between Pierre Poilievre, the nationalist, and the independence movement, and then they're going to fillet off votes, whether that's do you support independence or do you support First Nations in Alberta? They're going to ask all kinds of crazy questions that are really going to pit a lot of his demographics against each other. And then they're going to try to pit his policies against Trump. They're going to try to bring Trump derangement syndrome, the Americans against the Canadians. What side are you on? And they're going to, a lot of people in Alberta and on the West Coast actually like Trump, even though they don't want to be the 51st state. They want to be an independent nation, but they can see Trump is putting his people first. And now I don't agree with everything. If you watched yesterday's episode, I didn't necessarily agree with him on Iran because I don't think he has a clear definition of what he wants to do in Iran. Is it regime change? Is it nuclear weapons? What is it? That being said, I still do support him on a lot of other things.
And I mean, the plans, sorry, I was trying to drink water. The plans that he has kind of laid out and the mentality that MAGA, like it or not, make America great again, has, and the whole putting America first, putting the country first, which is what Canada has done last. It's put Canadians last. And Albertans have finally realized that and are now doing something about it, while the rest of the lemmings in Canada just are okay with it, I guess.
Pierre Poilievre had great policies and he talked about them all, and they just harken back to a lot of Trump's policies, and Trump had those 8 years ago, and now he's implementing them. And it was a shame they didn't ask him. They're like, well, you're not in power right now. What politicians in power? Because he talked about a lot of global policies that are hindering the globe, not just Canada, like green policy, stuff like this. But ask him what politicians that are actually in power on a global scale have actually implemented these policies. And it's obviously Trump and other politicians that have supported Trump, and they kind of rely on each other. The problem is there's so much TDS in Canada. Poilievre can't be part of that group. He's trying to make separation from himself, and that just allows Mark Carney to really have a crack in the foundation of what a lot of his policies are and where that's going to get him. And I think they're great policies. That's the issue. I just think in a hard-fought, knives-out election, Mark Carney has the TDS, has the Alberta independence versus nationalist thing, and it's going to work against Poilievre, and it's a damn shame.
He also put this in here, speaking of more federal politicians from Bruce Party. Sorry, it says, quote, the fix is...
1 second. And Bruce Party is the one that's going to be debating tomorrow night. He's going to be debating Jason Kenney. Everybody from Alberta knows who Jason Kenney is at this point.
Yes, this quote, the fix is in. Danielle Smith's referendum might appear to open the door to Alberta independence. It's more likely to slam the door shut.
Yeah, and he's huge in the independence movement, but he's really echoing what Jeff Rath is saying, what a lot of the other leadership in the Alberta independence movement is kind of saying. So just keeping a tight, a good eye on not only Pierre Poilievre, but Danielle Smith, because they could have a huge impact on the 7 steps that we need to kind of go through at any point. Now, Danielle Smith, I will say she has helped this independence vote along a lot, because she lowered the threshold for the number of signatures needed. So,
and I just wanted to bring it up a little bit because it is an article that he wrote, and this is coming out right before he goes and debates tomorrow. So it is interesting. If you want to see it, it's at the Brownstone Institute or on Bruce Party's X. And do you want me to read a little bit of it or no?
Read a little bit, and then we'll go into comments.
It says, quote, last, but do go read it all if you're interested.
And if you have any comments, leave them. We read them all live. You don't have to super chat.
Yes. It says, quote, last week, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith announced a referendum for October 19th. It will ask Albertans a slate of policy and constitutional questions. Independence, she said, the next day will be added to the ballot if the requisite number of signatures is met in the petition drive, which is likely. Albertans will get their chance to say if they want to leave Canada, but Canadian Federalists can relax. The Alberta Premier is one of them. The referendum is the fix to defeat Alberta independence. It will undermine the separatist cause and split the independence vote. And that's kind of what we have also been saying. And when we talked about how Danielle Smith had where Danielle Smith had positioned the referendum question on independence, the fact that it's coming after a bunch of other ones that most of them that also have federal and provincial implications, most people will say yes to that, but it muddies the waters.
Well, I think it's going to give
just stand by itself.
I think it's going to give the Federalists 2 cracks at it, meaning if the vote is really heavy in favor of Alberta independence, it's going to be hard for Danielle Smith to come out against it at that point because she will not get elected again if she does. That being said, she wants to see what the vote is, and then she can say, oh, it is confused. We have to take the vote again. We'll do another referendum with just that question. But that could take 6 to 12 months. I mean, that's really burning up the time that Trump's in office. And you're going to need Trump's support when it comes to those later steps in Alberta independence, whether you like them or not.
Should I read comments?
Yeah, let's read some comments.
Wild Rose says, sorry, sometimes I shorten your usernames just because some of them are really long. Wild Rose says, I like Danielle more than Pierre if I had to choose. I think I'd also choose Danielle. I mean, federally, if it was still thinking of Canada.
Yeah, I think
Pierre has, again, since when we first started the channel, we were talking about the same issues that are still popping up with Pierre.
Like, I do like Pierre on a national level. I don't like the stance he took on against the independence movement, so I kind of disregard him now. That being said, he reminds me, because a lot of people in Canada that live in BC and other provinces have too much hope in him, thinking he's going to be able to change things. Even if he gets elected with a minority, it's not enough power. He's not going to be able to make those changes. That being said, he reminds me somewhat of how he takes his decisions of Justin Trudeau. He's like the conservative version. What Justin Trudeau famously made popular amongst liberal politicians is he spent millions of dollars on polling on a weekly and monthly basis to know exactly how to frame questions, what was popular, what wasn't, what he would talk about, what he wouldn't. He wouldn't take a stance until the polling was in his favor. Pierre Poilievre, yeah, he's got the right stance, but it takes him a long time to get there, whether it's the truckers convoy, the jibby jab, or whatever else it is. He won't take the stance until the polling's favorable to him.
Or until he's seen others before him also stand up against it.
Yeah, and maybe I can understand why he does it.
Depending.
I mean, Maxime Bernier takes the hard stances early on when they're not popular, 5 years before they're popular. Now they're popular.
And he's also suffered for it.
Yeah, and he suffered for it. That being said, I have a lot of respect for that man for taking those hard stances when nobody had him.
Yeah.
So and we did a video about Maxime Bernier, and I was surprised when he took a lot of his stances and how early on he did.
Sydney says, I'd rather see Kenny debate Keith Wilson. I'm guessing Keith Wilson is a bit busy, but
God,
yeah.
I would love to see Keith Wilson in any debate.
Yes.
That being said, it's going to be a great debate. Just having Jason Kenney kind of put his skin on the line here is going to be interesting. I think he's going to get absolutely blown apart here. And the guy he's debating isn't some happy, smiley guy. He's going to go right at him. He's going to go for the throat, hopefully.
And we'll talk about that on Friday as well. Wild Rose says, Jason Kenney is literally only interested in serving his career. That's it. And that's why I continue to talk against career politicians and why it should be those that don't want to be politicians but do want to see some sort of change within their province, country, county, whatever it may be. Those are the ones you want. The ones that don't want to be politicians, don't want to be career politicians, and aren't just there to continue to grasp for power.
Yeah,
those are the real politicians.
You're looking for your George Washingtons who refused to be king after they won the nation. He kind of turned it down. Keith Wilson kind of is that to the Alberta independence movement. He's my vote for leader, even though he says he doesn't want to be. He's the one
because he says he doesn't want to
and
be.
He's so trustable, and he knows the knowledge. He knows the talking points so damn well.
But never put all your coins in one basket.
No, and this is why you need to build in radical transparency in a new Alberta independence government, no matter who's in power. Because even if Keith Wilson is trustable and does get in there, he's only going to be in a leadership role for so long before somebody else takes over. And you need radical transparency. That is what can build trust between the government and its citizens. Because right now, especially in Canada, the elites of the country and the politicians think they run the country, and the serfs are going to just do what they say and shut up about it.
And you have that opportunity to be a country that actually does that, to be an example for everybody else too, and to enact the things that because all the other systems have been established for so long, all the other political systems have been established for so long, don't want to do it, doesn't benefit them, and it scares them. But with a new country, you can fully just enact that from day one.
Well, and it's easy in a place like Alberta because you only have a few major cities, mainly Calgary and Edmonton. You build radical transparency into each one individually, and then you can just replicate that in the smaller cities. It's something that can be done. When you're looking at a whole nation like the United States or like Canada, it's hard to build in radical transparency from the ground up. So...
And Sydney says, I have said from the beginning, Justin was an incompetent fool with destructive ideologues behind him. Now the latter is in power. And it's funny because I did a video about Mark Carney before he got in, he got appointed, but before he got elected in Spanish. And I did discover a lot of things that I didn't know about him. But he was one of those shadow figures in the background trying to continue to enact the globalist world order, and he had to step out in front because of Justin's mistakes. But this is one of the first times, it's happened before, but one of the first times we've seen one of these shadowy figures step into the limelight, because I don't think he ever intended to step into the limelight, but he has continued to show that, yes, he was.
It was an act of desperation by the globalist. He is basically the leader of the kind of globalist. He's the kind of figure that usually stays in the background. He was one of the major global architects of how the new banking system and the new economy was supposed to work with climate credits, carbon credits, and all kinds of other things. I mean, all you have to do is kind of read his book, and that's why he would rather drive Canada off a cliff than abandon this economic system that he was the architect of, that the entire Western world was supposed to adopt.
Yep.
The new world order, as he put it.
And Jesse, I will say, says he's donated the money from the book to stay free. And there's a fella with a giant blue suit and a cowboy hat at its center. It's Danielle. No, what's his name? The guy that wrote the book.
Oh, The Fringe, The Unacceptable Fringe. Yeah. And also there's another good book that Sheila Gunn Reid wrote. That one's a little bit more intellectual, but she kind of analyzed the former separatist movement in Quebec, what went right, what went wrong, what are the kind of steps for Alberta to take, and what are going to be the hurdles. So I recommend that as well. We do have a super chat if you want to read that, if you want to jump ahead.
It's not showing. Oh, there. It wasn't showing it to me. Sorry. Hello, Steve Zerfaro, and thank you so much for your 499 super chat. I can't see.
He's single-handedly funding us forward with Alberta independence. So I think Alberta owes Steve Zerfaro a thank you.
Yes. Steve Zerfaro says, I do not understand why a Canada Safe Voting Act is not a prerequisite for all these discussions.
Well, read it a bit slower.
I do not understand why a Canada Safe Voting Act is not a prerequisite for all these discussions.
Yeah, compared to the United States, the Canadian voting system is a lot more safe. But when it comes to something like Alberta independence, which is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar question and determine the future of Canada, if there was ever a time they were going to rig something, this is going to be it. So, and it's
not like they haven't done it before.
This is another thing, and he brings up a good point here, because it makes me think all these questions Danielle's putting on this ballot about voter ID and different things like that, about cleaning up an election, about immigration. These are things she should already be doing, and she said she was going to be doing. She should be fixing before an Alberta independence vote takes place. Is this a way to delay a lot of those things so they can possibly rig an election? I don't want to be too much of a conspiracy theorist, but
that's the thing. It opens the door to those questions.
And everybody's seen what happened in the United States. I mean, not everybody thinks it was rigged. I think the 2020 election was rigged, but...
And again, to me, as a Mexican, it is insane that the U.S. doesn't have voter ID.
In all states.
Even Somalia has voter ID. Here in Mexico, we have voter ID. The elections also get rigged, of course. But at least we've had that embedded within our system for the longest time.
Yeah.
So to say that immigrants wouldn't know how to do it is insane. And it's just an excuse.
We'll go to two more comments. Go back up to where we were, and then we'll go back to some posts.
I believe Sydney had asked Wild Rose who would be the better federal candidates, or who would be best federally, not for Alberta. And Wild Rose said, in terms of policy, People's Party of Canada. On terms of real border base, Pierre. And that's the thing. Pierre has worked on his border base, and that's why he's so milk toasty.
But that's why he has to sacrifice his first principles. And this is what's happening to Reform UK in the UK right now. I mean, they're being completely hollowed out because they're abandoning their first principles and trying to appeal to immigrants and a mass immigration population.
And Sydney says, the day Kenny put Alberta money into Keystone right before the 2020 election, I went, why? And sure enough, Biden threw it away.
Yeah. And on a national scale.
And that's what would happen. Again, we always talk about the bipolarity of U.S. politics. Right now, Trump is in, and probably the administration would work forward with Alberta and to get Alberta to be independent. But if the Democrats get in 4 years, in less than 4 years, it's going to go back to insanity and back to these kinds of deals with the insane people.
It's going to be interesting. Right now, we don't even have the signatures. Once those signatures come, there's going to be a huge push from the federal government, and you're going to have to there's going to be mass censorship coming across Canada. If you're not subscribed to this channel or other independence channels, please do so, because I'm sure they're going to try to unboost the channels. Yeah. That being said, when it does happen, American media is going to be extremely important. And this is going to be a topic that's going to be very popular amongst American media, because if Alberta gains its independence, it changes the paradigm between the government and its citizens. And I've been seeing a lot of polling from a lot of U.S. states that actually want to separate from the U.S. as well, like California, even Texas. So within those states, I think that conversation will come up if Gavin Newsom gets into office, or even a lot of states don't like Trump. So they're talking about an independence movement themselves. But what's happening in Alberta is relatable to a lot of states and their dissatisfaction with their own governments. So it's a topic that's going to come up, especially because Alberta can actually be the first province or state in modern times to make this a reality. And in the EU, a lot of EU countries don't want to be part of the EU anymore, because the EU government is making them subservient and taking their sovereignty away.
And that's why Alberta has to understand that there is a big worldwide push for this, and there's a lot of people watching. And at the same time, there's not many that know fully about it or don't fully understand it, which is why it is important to get it covered in other media, other countries as well.
Well, I did see somebody in the comments, and I did respond back to him. He said nobody outside of Alberta really cares about independence, and that's not the case. Mm-hmm. Most of BC understands that it's probably not going to happen for BC, but if Alberta gets its independence, a lot of them are going to go to Alberta. And I'm not talking about Vancouver. I'm talking about the interior and the northern half of BC. A lot of those industries work interconnected simultaneously. I used to work in mining and oil in BC and Alberta, and a lot of the companies go back and forth. Also, Saskatchewan supports you. A lot of the U.S. supports you. Conservatives in the U.S., we're going to be profiling. We're shooting the video after today's live about Glenn Beck. Yeah. He's a big supporter of Alberta independence. He's one of the few media people that have actually talked about it.
Yeah. But still, there's a lot of other independent media, independent journalists, whatever you want to call them, content creators in the US that talk about the insanity of Canada frequently, about the MAID program, about what's going on with the parental rights and trans issues. They've had Billboard Chris on. They've had a lot of other Canadian creators and activists and journalists on with them as well. So they do care about what happens in Canada, and they do like to use Canada as an example of where the insanity could lead in the US. Well, so they have good talking points with Canada, too.
I don't know if they necessarily really care about Canada. Canada provides a warning signal to them, but they very often ignore it. But most conservatives in the U.S. can really, really relate to Albertans, and a lot of the initial immigration to Alberta was from Oklahoma and Texas. Mm-hmm. They really do relate to the culture of Albertans, and they're going to be paying attention, especially after these signatures are got and they're submitted. You're going to see a lot more international press kind of covering this thing.
We also saw it recently during the hockey game. I mean, but the debate and conversation just went for days on end, and with the reactions of Canadians to that hockey game.
Yeah. Oh,
that gave a lot of fodder to the U.S.
One more comment, and then we'll go back into the posts.
Okay, hold on, because now they're talking to each other. Sydney says, I'm initiating a petition to have Wild Rose to change the handle to Strong and Free. But thank you so much to Sydney and Wild Rose for continuing the conversation.
And Steve Sparrow as well.
Yes, and Steve Sparrow. Wait, where am I? I read that one. Okay.
Okay, let's go into the post.
Oh, and Tal is here. I'll read your comment in a bit, but hello, Tal. Thank you for being here. This is a random one. From YG Wave, quote, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is urging the federal government to reverse new limits on nicotine pouches, saying the measures restrict options for adults trying to quit smoking and could unintentionally increase youth access.
Yeah, absolutely
They
great.
already did this with vaping.
Absolutely great policy,
BC.
especially in Alberta. The regulations need to be taken off of this. Why? Because a lot of people that do still smoke in Alberta work in mines, work on oil fields, and a lot of times you can't smoke or vape in a lot of these places.
Boom.
So a nicotine patch is a good alternative. So I do like the fact that she is kind of supporting this policy, and it does help people get off cigarettes. I mean, vaping did help you.
But that's what I was going to say. Also in BC, they tried this with the whole vaping conundrum and the flavors conundrum. And yes, I used to smoke, and yes, I used to vape. But just seeing the bad enactment of these policies within BC, but also here in Mexico.
Oh wait, tell them about Mexico's because they won't believe
It's
it. I
insane
didn't
in
believe it. In
Mexico,
the former president's name is AMLO, and he has a son,
a fat son.
They
called Choco Flan. So like a flan, but made out of chocolate, because his hair color was blonde and black at the same time, and it looked like a flan with chocolate on top of it. But he decided to vape, and he was a minor at the time, but he decided to vape a substance that is already illegal and that he got off the bad market somewhere that caused them issues. But also he has issues with obesity, so though that compounded as well. But because of all of that, only because of that, basically, the government decided to completely ban anything that has to do with vaping, vape products, etc. And the way they went about it, and the way they went about with the policies for that, was insane by restricting both. Initially, they wanted to restrict both the use of vaping and the selling of vaping. Eventually, they got it to the selling. But right now, you can go essentially anywhere in Mexico and find street vendors and full-on fancy shops that will continue to sell vape. So it didn't really work. But in BC, when they tried to do that, a lot of the ex-smoking community and a lot of the vaping community said, well, it's not up to the government to fully police everything everywhere all the time. And this will only attract youth even more, which is what happened in BC and happened in Mexico too. So every time they try to do this, it doesn't work.
Okay, back to Alberta here.
You got me to talking. I can talk to the wall. Sometimes I can talk about anything.
Well, her other show, she just goes off the cuff with no articles, and I can't.
I have posts and I bring up, but it's not very structured because I just mostly talk to the audience. Because for me, that's what lives are about. Lives are to connect with the audience and see what other people are thinking too.
Well, I used to do a show by myself, and
not fully by yourself. I was there on the side.
I have a hell of a time. I just completely rely on the articles. I get extremely nervous. Having you here really helps me even be normal. Okay, let's go into the next post.
Marty up north says, quote, the Alberta Sovereignty within the United Canada Act was the first piece of legislation that Danielle Smith passed when she came into power. Remind me again why she needs half a dozen referendum questions in October to take control of our immigration, the taxes we pay, I guess, our police force and property rights, i.e. the gun ban. She has the mandate to do all these things under this act. If she doesn't feel she has proper mandate, she can trigger a snap election and campaign on those issues. I think she knows that the independence movement is real, and she wants us to be set up for failure by confusing the population with a whole bunch of unrelated questions.
But this is also the reason why getting these signatures and trying to hopefully reach 1 million. If you can reach 1 million signatures, it not only sends a message to the federal government, but more importantly, it sends a firm message to Danielle Smith. Right now, she's trying to walk a tightrope. She doesn't want to lose her position on the national level, but she knows she can't win re-election without a lot of people that support independence. That being said, if it's extremely popular and the vote comes in like this thing's definitely going to go through, you're going to see her put her support behind independence, because she's going to see her future in Alberta and not with the national government, especially if Poilievre loses the next snap election.
But I think this is the most important thing. She already has the mandate to do that, both under that act, but also by people having voted for her and putting her in the first place.
Well, and the fact that she
hasn't done it yet. That's the thing.
The fact that she's not doing this, the fact that she's not trying to clean up voter ID and election rolls and a lot of this immigration stuff just shows, is she trying to sabotage this thing in multiple different ways?
And that she also used that, and we talked about this on the last live about Alberta, that she used that as an excuse for the terrible budget that came out.
Yeah,
and for
absolutely.
the deficits. She used the excuse of, oh, it's immigration, but at the same time, she allowed and accepted all of that from the federal government.
And I'll make it clear, Alberta has more than enough money if the federal government wasn't taking money away, and they wouldn't have a deficit. But you don't have a deficit on the same year you're going to have an Alberta independence vote. It makes people that don't know politics or don't know the economy saying, I'm unsure if Alberta can actually stand on its own, because they don't understand that the federal government is taking money from the province.
Mm-hmm. But also another point that we also discussed recently was the pension plan, because that's beginning to be another talking point by the Federalists from Marty up north.
Well, it's not only becoming a talking point from the Federalists, it's becoming a talking point from the independence movement, because 45% of that pension is actually Alberta's, and Canada's going to have a very small pension if Alberta separates and takes their share of the pension with them.
So Marty up north says, quote, Alberta workers contribute $9 billion annually to the Canadian pension plan. Alberta retirees only receive $6 billion annually in benefits. Alberta is basically the only province contributing a surplus to the program, which is being invested in a fund managed by a Crown Corporation called CPP Investments, Inc. At least half the money in that fund belongs to Albertans, and by law, we're allowed to ask for it back and start our own pension plan. The money does not belong to Ottawa, but this year, Carney included the funds in the balance sheet, which should also be worrying. Now he's in India, where he promised to invest $100 billion from the fund. And Canada has nearly $3 trillion in debt. Do you seriously think that money will still be there when you retire?
Carney is gambling with the CPP and the Canadian Pension Fund, and he's investing in countries in order to try to get better deals, and he's still not getting better deals. That being said, I was looking into it. It's around $700 billion that Alberta will be given back from that. It's a lot less money for Carney to gamble with, number one, but that's almost $1 trillion. Imagine if Albertans take that $700 billion and invest it in Alberta. So it's a self-sustaining kind of pension fund. So you invest in yourself, bet on yourself rather than India, rather than China, rather than even the United States. Bet on yourself. And bet on your allies.
And every time they invest it somewhere else, Canada goes and invests part of the CPP or the CPP elsewhere, they've lost, and they just don't let people know. But this happened last year. They lost a bunch of that money because they did bad investments, and nobody knew what happened.
And when you see
until independent journalists started talking about
when you see figures like $9 billion and $6 billion, that doesn't account for all the decades that has accumulated in there. We're talking trillions of dollars here. When it comes to Alberta itself, you're talking around $700 billion. It's approaching $1 trillion, and Alberta keeps being the biggest contributor to the pension fund. I mean, I don't even know if the pension fund works in Canada without Alberta, because they own almost half that pension fund.
Yes. And now something more.
And I will say this, they're probably going to have to make a compromise when we go into the negotiations with the federal government. The federal government's going to want to keep a lot of that pension fund, a lot of the profits that have accumulated through the stock market, or however Mark Carney's investing it in. So what the Alberta government should do, because they have so much natural resources, they should not only replenish whatever they lose in that negotiation, but put extra on top to make everybody confident within Alberta that their pension fund is secure with the Albertan government.
But also now some news more local to us, and I do know there's at least one of you that lives close or used to live close to here. But Rise of Alberta also says Albertans in Puerto Vallarta, maybe those that got stuck during the chaos that unfolded here in Mexico 2 weeks ago, says the Alberta Independence Petition signing window is open at 3 locations and soon. On March 7th at Los Muertos Beach Pier, March 7th also at Café Roma, March 10th at Amigos Sports Bar and Cocina. Check the poster for details.
Bring
Alberta ID.
City?
No, Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, okay.
Bring Alberta ID and sign, and also proof of residence.
And we did show there was over 300 people at the Alberta signing.
At the Arizona signing.
The Arizona signing petition, which was fantastic. There was another one in Florida. There's multiple ones in Mexico. I will say this. I have been watching people that have been signing these international locations. If you do sign on the international one, just go ahead and sign again when you get back home to Alberta. A lot of people
wouldn't that mess up the thing?
No, but it just guarantees, because what can happen at an international location, the person that's gathering the signatures for some reason doesn't make it back to Alberta. If you double sign, just let the person that you're signing in Alberta that you've already signed somewhere else, but you're not sure if that petition is going to make it back. So
I want to double check if that would muddy the waters or
no,
not. But
it's better to sign twice than to sign and have it not make it back to Alberta. It's a long way to go from Mexico to Alberta. And we've seen what happened in Mexico the other day. There was stopping flights and everything else. So, and people
from there might be the ones that got stuck.
And people that are doing these international petitions may be scheduling themselves to go back to Alberta just before they have to turn them in. And if there's any delay, they end up not turning them in by accident.
But if it's expats that live in Puerto Vallarta, then just go sign there. Because they're not going back to Alberta.
Yeah.
Because they live there.
Obviously, yeah.
Okay. From Jeff Rath now says, quote, "An SGM needs to be held this summer to determine whether the UCP supports Alberta independence. If yes, Danielle will have to follow the will of her members or resign. We can't wait for the referendum." And this is in response to someone saying, "I know many on the left and right think Smith is secretly supportive of Alberta independence, but in my opinion, she is doing everything she can to undermine Alberta with passive-aggressive actions to try and hold onto the voter base."
Yeah, and this is the Conservative Party within
United
Alberta. And we want those politicians to firmly say, what side are they on? What do they support? What do they not support? In Alberta, a lot of them are going to have to support the independence movement if they want to be reelected. The problem here is if they fall on the side of independence and we kind of put it to him, that puts Pierre Poilievre in quite a position saying nobody in his national party supports independence and he'll kick him out if they do. So we can go back to some comments if you want, and then we'll continue on.
Okay, let me try to go quickly. Wild Rose says, "I see things getting far worse federally before they get better. I believe Carney will get a majority by any means necessary. This will spell a major accelerationism for independence."
Yeah,
and in a way that would be good for Alberta if Carney gets the majority. But at the same time, it could also put even more restrictions and impositions upon the momentum for independence.
No.
If Carney gets a majority, more Albertans will say we want to get out.
Yeah, but the problem is we went over the 7 steps they need for Alberta independence.
But that's what I'm saying. But at the same time,
it's not at the same time. You need, if you're reluctantly not going to vote out of protest, you need to vote in the next election to hold Carney back from a majority government. It doesn't matter if he wins, as long as he doesn't get a majority. We kind of reviewed what the 7 steps were to independence, and Mark Carney, if he gets a majority, has enough power to probably derail a lot of those steps. So, yeah, you can say it's going to push Albertans want to vote more, but the vote might not matter if he can derail the other steps after the signatures.
Tal says, "Howdy, you twos. Hello, and thank you for being here." Sydney says, "Some people outside of Alberta support our independence movement, but undeniably most Canadians outside of Alberta do not support the end of their country because that is what Alberta is leaving."
Yeah, it's going to be the end of Canada.
Because that is what Alberta leaving is. So.
Yeah, it's the end of Canada if Alberta leaves. I mean, I've done a ton of research on the economics of each province now of Alberta. We've been going pretty in depth since we've been starting to cover the Alberta independence movement. And it's funny that I know it's the end of Canada, but the federal government is in complete denial right now.
I think they know, but they're panicking.
They're not. It's not that they're panicking. They're playing. They're playing to their base. They're playing to the Laurentian elites and their Ottawa base.
Yeah, but they're going to do everything they can to stop it.
It doesn't matter.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. But also, I think it is in part cognitive dissonance, but also in part you can see it as a sunken cost fallacy. Like, I don't think most Canadians, if Alberta becomes independent, would ever want to admit that there was an issue, and they'll just double down on why Canada is so great, which is the same reason why we continue to see, for example, Canadians being really, really proud of the healthcare system, but not understanding that it's non-functional at the same time.
It's going to be fantastic once Alberta gets its independence, because you're going to have a one-to-one comparison. Yeah. Alberta's economy to Canada's economy, liberal politics to conservative politics, traditional to progressive. And
standard
you're going to see
living to
you're pulling up your bootstraps and doing the work, or let the government lord over you and make you a serf. Oh. I mean, it's going to be a one-to-one comparison. It's going to be fantastic.
And relying on big daddy government versus on yourself.
Yeah, but it is the one way, if they do allow Alberta to leave, to really push Canada into socialism and then eventually communism, and to really lean on the Chinese government.
Harmony, hello Harmony, says good evening folks and thank you for being here. Wild Rose says exactly Sydney, they want to keep the status quo for as long as possible. The problem for us all in Canada is that the Ponzi scheme is coming to an end and the whole works may collapse. It's already collapsing.
Yeah, we're going to go into, actually, I added a lot of what's going on with the BC land rights into the Alberta section because it's crucially important. I think a lot of what the federal government is currently doing in BC by giving a lot of the land away in BC, specifically Vancouver, which is a major metropolis area, just gave it away, give the land rights away. What are they willing to renegotiate with these Indigenous tribes before the Alberta independence vote comes? I mean, that's another way to undermine this thing.
And Tal says, it is the same in Const. We are one of the last bastions of smokers. It is generally outside smoker rules, especially because we're working in facilities in construction and maintenance.
Yeah, I used to work in oil and underground mining. You can't smoke in a lot of the places.
Well, no, you explode.
Yeah.
From Sydney, since the Iran war, Alberta oil is up $8, another 8, and the deficit is gone. Perfect.
Oh yeah, it's up $8.
We talked about that yesterday.
So the problem with that is the carbon credits are taking $10 from each barrel. So there would be no debt if there was no carbon tax. Yeah, that $8 is just making up for the carbon tax that the government was already taking out of Alberta's back pocket.
Tal says, what would really put high octane fuel into our independence movement would be a snap election that gives the LPC a majority. Liberal Party.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was saying, but you said no.
I don't like the amount of power that's going to be given to Carney with that. There's just too many things he can do. Renegotiate land rights with tribes in Alberta. He can put a stop to the 7th step on what they need to do. Any number of those steps can be derailed with a majority government. It's really hard for Carney to derail the Alberta independence movement with a minority government. Just like we're seeing these censorship laws, they're just waiting there. They're already kind of approved, but he can't put them through until he has a majority government. He knows that. Also, it really derails the Alberta independence movement with those censorship bills because it's going to be extremely hard to talk about them in Canada if you're a content creator that lives in Canada.
Yeah.
It wouldn't put it past Carney to go arrest content creators if he gets those bills passed.
Hopefully not, but Sydney says, Laurentian Canada only takes our money because they love us.
No.
And that's abuse.
That's
abuse.
Yeah, a husband that abuses his wife. I hate you because I love you.
Yeah, I hate you because I love you. Rafa, hello, Rafa. Rafa
good to see
says,
you.
hello, is this the Alberta Independence official channel?
Yeah.
We have been talking about it a lot.
But it is at this point. Yeah.
But we do still continue to talk about geopolitics. Yesterday, we talked about the Iran-US conflict, and we will continue to talk about that too.
Yeah.
We will, I do want to try to ramp up a bit other videos too.
If you want to.
Yes, if I have time, because I also have to do videos in Spanish. Sydney says, just one of the many contributors, us.
Yeah.
And Tal says, by the way, I saw and said howdy to that Canadian Spider-Man guy in anti-CCP commie team stream earlier. We gave y'all a prompt there for what it's worth. Thank you so much
We
for the
appreciate
shout
it.
out. Yes, thank you so much.
Because, we are a small channel. There is a lot of censorship within Canada. It really helps. Every subscription really does help YouTube kind of push us out to the next time we have a live stream.
Or a video.
But even likes really help
Yes.
because this topic is extremely censored, especially in Canada. It's only going to get more censored
As we go.
after the signatures are had.
After approximately May 2nd.
Okay, let's go into the posts again if we can.
Oh, you said posts.
Yeah,
Well done.
you're training me well.
Hold on. There we go. From Dallas Brody, quote, the Liberal government is giving away BC's lower mainland titles to Musqueam Band.
And this is going to be the first post of maybe 3 or 4 posts. This is a very important subject, not just in BC, but for all of Canada and Alberta. The underhanded things that they're not only doing it on a provincial level, but a federal level. The federal government's working with First Nation tribes, and they're both together working with the UN to bring outside law into provinces that undermine provincial and federal law. And then they're adopting
property rights.
This is how you lose your property rights. This is how you own nothing and you be happy in Canada. This was the plan all along, I think.
I don't have title to my property anymore. I'd like to know why I'm paying property tax and who I'm now paying it to. You cannot tax me without representation. Hi, everyone. Dallas Brody here. This is a 911, an SOS, a May Day announcement to my riding of Vancouver-Quashena and all the other ridings that are located within the Lower Mainland. The federal government has now granted Aboriginal title over all of the Lower Mainland to the Musqueam Indian Band. The Musqueam Indian Band has approximately 1,250 members. They have a chief named Wayne Sparrow, and I guess he is now the owner of Aboriginal title over your properties. This announcement has been buried in the mainstream media, but was discovered by Juno News and released on Friday. It's interesting that this was secretly leaked out by the federal government just when things were heating up in the Middle East, and late on a Friday it came out. This is an astounding story and something that should have all of you waking up and taking notice. Your title to your property is now subordinate to the Aboriginal title that has now been given to the Musqueam Indian Band over almost all of the Lower Mainland. This here,
okay, and that's good. And I'll say this: this is all the biggest cities within BC. Yeah. This is Vancouver, Richmond, Surrey, half of Coquitlam, North Vancouver. If they're willing to do this to that industrial sector, they'll do it anywhere. This is obviously set up. This has always been the plan with this Alberta independence thing. I think it's making them go on an expedient timeline to push this thing through.
And through any means possible also.
And why Albertans should care about this, and we got 3 or 4 more articles about this subject, why they should care about this. I could see the First Nations tribes working hand in hand with the federal government to say,
More than they already are.
We signed the initial treaties under duress. We want to renegotiate. Then the federal government saying, okay, and then ceding a lot more land within Alberta, undermining the independence movement at its very core. What it's going to take for Mark Carney to do that in Alberta is a majority government. That's why I don't want to see a majority government. He can do it in BC because the premier of BC, David Eby, is working hand in hand with Carney to do this. This was the big plan for socialism within Canada.
Mm-hmm. And just as an aside, and if you do want to record a video or are recording videos and you're using a lapel mic or any kind of mic, try to use voice isolation because it makes it a lot easier to understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion for Dallas Brody or anybody else. But let's see David Eby be completely clueless about
the
this.
mic in front of you, by the way.
It is in front. About this insane topic. From Mark Nixon says, quote, holy S. David Eby had zero idea that Mark Carney gave a majority of the Lower Mainland title over to the Musqueam. David Eby is a premier in British Columbia. And he says that this is great. We're making progress on reconciliation. Now we just need to understand what it means for 2 million property owners.
Yeah, this isn't true. Can you read the first statement again?
David Eby had zero idea that Mark Carney gave a vast majority of the Lower Mainland.
I started with this because this ended up being a lie. This was his original statement. Oh, I had no idea. We're going to show in a minute. He had complete idea. He was at the signing ceremony. That's why you know this is planned. They know what they're doing. There's something behind the scenes going on. They want to get rid of private property rights in Canada. They want to adopt
more because property taxes are already a thing.
And they want to adopt somewhat of a Chinese system where you get a 99-year lease on a property, because currently you can buy property on Aboriginal land, but it's only leased for 99 years. And that's how the Chinese system is kind of made up.
This is from Cosmin Zurza. He was great during the truckers' convoy, by the way. Great reporting. Unbelievable. David Eby admits he wasn't even briefed. So he says.
You said at the outset, Premier, on the Musqueam announcement that you hadn't been briefed on it yet. I find that a bit startling. Did the feds not brief you, or do you mean you just haven't gotten caught up on it? Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, sure, Les. To the best of my understanding, the provincial government was not briefed at the political level on this. I can't say whether or not at this stage whether any public service members had line of sight to it. I certainly didn't. But with that said, I'm not surprised that the feds were involved in these conversations. They've been involved with these conversations with Musqueam for a long time. The Sparrow case that found that there were Indigenous fishing rights came from Musqueam. Musqueam has a title claim that's about a decade old that they filed claiming against the federal government. And so engaging in these conversations is entirely appropriate. I think the lesson the federal government is learning over the weekend is that there is a heightened environment for these conversations and these agreements right now, and they have to go above and beyond. Is a lesson that the provincial government is in no position to lecture people on. We're doing our own work to make sure we're bringing people along on this as well. And we'll be engaging with the feds to understand the implications of the decision for the provincial government while recognizing the importance of this work to be done.
And that was a complete lie. Not his opinions that, oh, we need to be giving this land away, but to say that he knew nothing about it. He was at the freaking signing ceremony, not just there. He was in the front row, and he had to come out and correct himself after that because he was caught in a bold-faced lie. Another reason this is extremely important to Albertans is because one of the major parties in Alberta that's gaining a lot of popularity is the NDP. David Eby represents the NDP in BC. This is the same ideology. They're going to try to give the land away and renegotiate these tribal rights in Alberta if they can.
Do you want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, go to the next one.
From Drea Humphrey, she's great. Says, quote, Vancouver land grab. Global News obtained a copy of this Musqueam Rights Recognition Agreement and published via Scribed. Shortly after it was removed from the document subscription services site. I have screenshots in the thread below.
Yeah, this was originally done through a lot of shady business, through fisheries acts, through acts they thought nobody was going to look at. When they got discovered, they ended up removing them. The premier of BC that we just showed came out with a bold-faced lie saying he knew nothing about this. All the while he was in the front row at the signing ceremony. Having this be an NDP leader in BC, ceding the rights on one level and then the national government doing it on another level. Obviously, they're both in cahoots because they knew what's going on, but they're giving statements saying they never knew.
So here it says, Rebecca Alta, the Liberal Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs of Canada, signed off on the agreement. We, the Musqueam people, are descendants of people who lived in the Musqueam homeland territory and waterways spanning from the North Shore Mountains through the Fraser River
You can
Valley.
leave this. We don't need to read everything about it. If they want to go into it, they can. But basically, this sits up the fundamental level. Now they can go to court and claim all the private property rights within these regions. Once they get that, I don't know if people will lose their homes, but it will probably be transferred to a 99-year lease, and then they'll pay taxes not to the federal government, but probably to the tribe itself. That's my guess of what would happen, but any number of things could happen here. This is not good at the least.
And I mean, here it even says the purposes of this agreement are to recognize the rights, blah, blah, blah. But C is to contribute to the implementation of the UN Declaration to provide foundation for reconciliation and an ongoing mutually beneficial relationship, taking into account Musqueam and Canadian
Well, and this is why Donald Trump is trying to make an alternative to the UN. He understands they're trying to push socialism and a Chinese communist system into the West. They'll codify a law within the UN and then try to sneak it in to legislation, whether it's in Canada, Australia, or any other number of Western countries. Then it gives the politicians in those countries cover because they say, oh, we didn't do it. This is international law. We're just adopting an international standard. We are going to get back into Alberta, but this is a extremely important story and has mass repercussions across Canada and into Alberta as well.
Yeah. From Table Salt, Holy See, Rebel News obtained a copy of the leaked secret agreement between the Musqueam tribe and the government of Canada. It literally includes Aboriginal title. This is why they're hiding this. They have agreed to that Aboriginal title could apply to Vancouver.
Yeah, and even though they deleted it, they were able to get a copy of this thing, which was fantastic. Is there one more, or did I take it out?
I think you took it out.
I took it out. Okay, there was supposed to be there was another statement David Eby made, which he directly lied the first time he made the statement. But okay,
no, it's not there.
Let's go back into Alberta. We'll do one more Alberta story, go into comments, and then finish up with Alberta.
From Freedom Calendar, quote, why not a better way to start a referendum on independence? It says, did you know we don't need to consent from Canada to leave Confederation?
And no, we don't need Canada's consent, nor the express consent of Indigenous people. We want to get it vote by all means. But we aren't bound by that. We got to stop letting people pretend that we aren't even allowed to hold the question. How much more undemocratic can we get than that? If you're that confident in the Federation, then let us vote. Beat us in a campaign, Fabio. Sorry, Thomas.
And this may be more important than people think, and this is why I put it in here. Those 7 steps we were talking about earlier, first we have to get the signatures, there's a bunch of other things to do. But that 7th step, it may require Albertans to kind of stand up and say, we don't need your permission for an amendment. because the federal government I don't know how it works, especially with a majority government, how they're going to get that seventh step of an amendment. But at that point, they've already reached every single other requirement. Albertans may just give Canada the middle finger and walk away at that point.
Yeah. Sorry, I left one comment up while we did that whole segment. Sorry about that. But you can go to Dre Humphreys' X feed to see all the documents and everything that was discovered by them as well. Steve Safaro says there are many Albertans, Californians, and Arizonans like us that frequent Puerto Vallarta and follow the local politics and entertainment. We met one of the most popular violinist group, Arcano, and they were trying for dual citizenship.
Well, yeah, and that's the great thing about Mexico. And even I was watching Tennessee and Nashville. There's a lot of live music. That kind of died out in Vancouver and across a lot of Canada.
And hello, Twin Briggs. Thank you for being here. And Steve Zafaro says, just contact Overlord DVD channel. Many Mexicans like Mexican Iron Man and Spider-Man. WDW Pro is friends with Overlord DVD. Thank you. Yeah. I'll see and look into that.
And you're on WDW Pro every other
2
week.
weeks. Yep.
Yeah.
Twin Briggs says that no one ever
and funny enough, we'll tell a funny story here. Last time you were on WDW Pro, they have this after-hours show that's just for subscribed members.
It's a members-only section of the show,
but they usually don't post it. They usually don't clip it. They'll do these short clips that they post after. But it was a funny story because they did pink milk, which is typically breast milk.
That's breast milk that's been tainted with blood. But Disney decided to remove one of the Star Wars land milks. There was a green one and a blue one. I think they removed the blue one and made it pink instead. However, they didn't realize that by naming it pink milk, if people Google it, they will probably get results about breast milk tainted with blood, which is completely normal and regular, especially if you're a first-time breastfeeding mom. But
you're going to scare off everybody.
But the whole segment was about that.
Yeah.
And I had to talk about that, and I thought it wasn't going to get clipped, but it did.
And then a couple of days later, I was like, oh, that segment you did after hours got clipped.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going here.
I don't know why you wanted to tell that story. That's why I was trying to get past it quickly.
It was funny.
Trent says, no one ever truly owns land due to property taxes. And that's exactly what I said. I mean, you already don't fully own the land if you still continue to pay taxes to the government for it. But...
Well, and this is something that you should really consider when you get your own country of Alberta. There should be no property taxes. What are you, a serf? That's even after you own the land, you're just going to keep paying the government for it. I mean, Florida right now is trying to get rid of property taxes. It's going to be on the next ballot. So good on Ron DeSantis for doing that. But a lot of other conservative politicians are proposing similar bills within their states. Yeah. And Donald Trump wants to do it nationwide. That's part of the reason why he brought it in the tariffs. He wants to get rid of all income taxes, but first he wants to get rid of property tax specifically.
Yes. Tal says the Canadian Constitution directly covers the separation question. So even if the LPC get a majority, there isn't much they can do about a yes vote other than make negotiations a pain in the behind.
Yeah,
but again, I wouldn't put it past them to figure out different ways to try to impede it.
They're going to want to really draw out those negotiations as long as they can. I mean, I could see that taking years. The Albertans are going to have to make a lot of concessions to speed this thing up. And the reason you're going to want to speed it up is because you're going to need Donald Trump to recognize you as a country, number one. But you need to do it while Trump is still in office, because if he leaves office and Newsom takes over, there's going to be all kinds of hurdles in front of you.
Yeah. And teaming up between the U.S. and Canada, but in a different way. That's not positive. Sydney says, people call me a dinosaur, so does that mean I own North America? But that's basically...
Well, there's a lot of dinosaurs actually in Alberta.
Yeah. Actual ones.
Actual dinosaurs.
Sydney says, Alberta treaty land is 100% ceded. But I wouldn't put it past them to, I mean, they're rushing in this process very clearly now. When the Iran conflict started, that's when they decided to quietly put this in to basically give Vancouver away and the lower mainland. Okay.
I totally agree. And I didn't know all the native land was ceded in Alberta. The issue you're going to have with that is this is literally the future of Canada hangs in the balance. Carney knows that. Why wouldn't he just tell one of the First Nations tribes, which they're already in cahoots with each other, say you were under duress when you signed that treaty, and I'll say, yeah, we need to renegotiate that and have a complete renegotiation on a federal level and then cede land on a federal level like he just did in BC.
Again, even if it doesn't make much sense and things seem to be settled, I wouldn't put it past them to try to unsettle them just to prevent this from happening.
Well, and this is why you need to make sure Carney doesn't get a majority government, because he can do more and more underhanded things because he'll have enough consolidated power. That's why holding him in a minority government, if there is a snap election, is crucially important to the Alberta independence movement. And I know a lot of people are pissed with Poilievre and they're going to protest the vote. You need to go out and vote just to hold Carney to a minority government. Otherwise, it's going to undermine the Alberta independence movement.
In your opinion?
Well, it will.
No, I know, but you can't tell people how to vote. So
I'm not telling them how to vote, but I'm saying Carney will undermine the Alberta independence movement if he gets a majority government.
Mm-hmm. Tal says, and if they do that, expect the GOP U.S. Federal government to apply serious pressure to the sitting Canadian government. Mm-hmm. And Sydney says, we're counting on that, Tal. And then Tal says, I'd expect that a lot of the bands wouldn't weep to be shed of the Fed government's continual mismanagement of the Indian Act and treaties. Most of the natives that I know are pro-leave. And that's the thing. They've been using just the loudest voices and the biggest voices and the chiefs within these First Nations within Alberta to speak up for everybody else. But most regular people understand that they don't have a very good relationship currently with the federal government, except for the chiefs and those at the top.
Yeah, the elites within the tribal bands are working hand in hand with the federal government, the Liberal federal government. Hundreds of billions of dollars have been handed over to tribes in every province. That doesn't make its way down to the actual people in the tribe. It stays with the elites in these bands. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's a lot of whistleblowers that are First Nations that are kind of shining a light on this now. The issue here is going to be, if you have the federal government working hand in hand with the tribal leaders often dictate a lot of the policy that the federal government is going to need to sabotage this movement. Even if the land has been ceded, there's no reason the federal government isn't going to say, we want to renegotiate this because it was done under duress.
Mm-hmm. But now moving back into Alberta. From Rebel News, quote, David Knight speaks on Alberta funding Canada and how the Liberals need to recognize that the province is the economic engine of the country, which they won't.
And again, we played a clip from this interview Rebel News did on the last show. I highly recommend watching this whole hour interview. It was absolutely fantastic. This guy knows what he's talking about. They go into the nuts and bolts. I thought I'd show one more clip just so I could recommend the interview again.
Right now, Alberta is funding Canada. Alberta is the one economy, the one economic engine that makes this country actually work. And the insistence on not recognizing that and not unlocking these, I think, obviously self-defeating policies is going to perpetuate the idea that Alberta can do better on its own. And I think there's a huge number of people that do not want separatism and sort of observe the obvious thing that you can't separate from geography. I think what we need to do, and this is a personal thing, but I would like to see us change the language of some of what we're talking about. I think we need a new architecture in Canada to allow Alberta to be prosperous, to allow it to pursue its autonomy. I think Alberta can be the Monaco of what Monaco is to France. I think Alberta can be the Monaco of North America and Canada, left to be able to create a much more progressive and inclusive economic opportunity society. And I think if Mark Carney would unlock that, all of Canada would benefit. Right now, Alberta is funding Canada.
And
Alberta
that being said, he is not in favor of independence or separatism, but he understands, if you watch the whole interview, that Mark Carney isn't going to cede any real political power, and he understands Alberta's only option is independence, even though he wants Alberta within a unified Canada.
Sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, as Danielle Smith would put it.
But he talks about the nuts and bolts of what independence is going to mean and the steps to go through. He was on the ground when Brexit went down as well. He's an economist, so he knows a lot of these things inside and out. I highly recommend the interview.
But from Jeremy Farkas, quote, overtaxation and underrepresentation are...
One moment. One more thing is we are going to run into an independence movement. A lot of people that say, well, I want Alberta to have a lot more autonomy, but I don't want it to separate. It's important that you have debates with liberal nationalists to really get their stance that they are not going to negotiate. They're not going to do these things. And the more that they make this clear, and they're making it clear in every debate they have, or even when Mark Carney's going to run his next national campaign, if there is a snap election, it's going to make clear to people that are on the fence that are like, I just want more independence for Alberta, but I don't want it to be separate. Once they realize that's not an actual option and the Liberal government isn't going to give up any political power, I think they're going to come over to the independence movement.
But also apparently internally, there's a bit of a disparity from Jeremy Farkas, quote, overtaxation and underrepresentation. Our Edmonton provincial government is pushing the biggest property tax hike in Calgary's history. Nearly half of property tax bill now goes to Edmonton as a transfer payment. Their take is up 57% in 4 years. Now they're demanding 21% more, about $339 per household this year alone. By comparison, Edmontonians are being asked to pay $154 more. Let's work together for a better deal for Calgary, says the mayor.
Hey Calgary, it's Mayor Jeremy. I'm heading into work for Executive Committee, and if we finish in time, I'll be seeing you at the game. But like many of you, I've been digging into the provincial budgets. Here's the bottom line. The provincial government is imposing the biggest property tax increase in Calgary's history. Most people don't know that almost half our property taxes go up to Edmonton. Over the last 4 years, they've increased their take by 57%. This year, they're increasing by 21%. For a typical Calgary household, that's about $339 more. By comparison, Edmonton households are paying less than half that amount. Our city council team did the work to restrain spending and improve safety. We held our increase to under 2%, but Calgarians will still feel a nearly $400 hit on their bill because of the province. That's not balanced, and it's not fair. So let's call this what it is. This is a form of equalization.
Okay, leave it there.
And transfer payments
There should be no property taxes, period. And that's how it should work when Alberta goes forward as a nation. You don't get treated like a serf to your masters. And that being said, Calgary is going extremely liberal in their voting base, voting a lot of NDP. Yeah.
But also property taxes go to things like education, for example, which again, Danielle Smith said that they need to improve education and that the resources are being strained. But at the same time, who are they being strained by? The immigration.
Well, and I also kind of put that article in there to talk about Danielle Smith's budget. And I don't like the fact that it's over budget. Normally, it would be okay with me because Alberta can pay that money back fairly quickly because of how much money comes into the province. The problem is, when you have an Alberta independence vote and you're over budget, the moderates just don't understand that how financially secure Alberta actually is, and it makes it look like they're not financially secure.
But also speaking about immigration and Alberta and how they have had to accept a bunch of more immigrants recently, wages seem to be going down, or average weekly earnings are going down. As Marty up north says, too many outsiders are accepting lower pays. Apparently.
Yeah, so there's too many implants coming into Alberta. A lot of this is from the federal government taking people from India and outside the country, implanting them there, and they're willing to take much lower wages. And the federal government will subsidize those wages up to 30% very often. So local workers are really outcompeted by the federal government paying the wage of an immigrant.
And also speaking about immigration, we have seen a lot of rhetoric of Americans going up to Canada because they want to escape the insanity that is Trump
and we can
Trump's
slow down
America.
on the articles a little bit.
Sorry.
Well,
because all of these are connected.
Okay.
The insanity that is Trump's America. But it seems like it's going the other way, in fact. From Sean D. Watley says, quote, more Canadians going up to the USA than there are Americans fleeing to Canada. Don't believe the CBC. It's in the reverse, that it's actually true.
Yeah, and this is obvious because more Canadians open businesses in the United States than they do in Canada now.
Because it's easier.
I can assure your Canadian viewers that the CBC is misleading you. I mean, when I moved to the U.S., there's a lot of stories in the news about American historians from Yale coming to the University of Toronto, to escape Donald Trump. And what you never see in the CBC is that there's way more Canadians down here than there are Americans going there. I can assure.
Yeah, it's really a financial decision and very often an ideological decision as well. That being said, ideology can shift every 4 or 8 years in the United States. But financially, if this Alberta independence vote doesn't go the right way and they're forced to stay in Canada and be subservient to the federal government, you're going to see a lot of Albertans go down to the states, especially with the special is it a visa?
Yes, I believe.
The special visa Donald Trump made for blue-collar workers. Clyde Do Something talked about that. We made a video on that a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, but also we recently showed a video of an American that had moved to Canada to escape Donald Trump, and she was very clearly insanely progressive, and she arrived in Vancouver, and then she was asking her subscribers, I guess, or the people watching her, if somebody could help her find somewhere to rent because it's way too insanely expensive and way more expensive than in the US. So at least I hope the Americans that are escaping to Canada and going to their progressive utopia hellhole that is Canada to escape from Donald Trump realize how good they used to have it down in the US.
Well, what you're seeing is the Americans that are coming up north are coming for ideological reasons, not economic reasons, and they're actually making Canada weaker. And the Canadians that are leaving Canada for the United States are blue-collar workers that are really going to build a country and what you need to build a country. So,
but at least they're looking at what the policies they fight so hard to try to implement, what actually happens when you do implement them and how much worse life gets once they're implemented.
Yeah.
Now, can I move on to the next post or no?
Yeah, I have to use the restrooms, but
okay, fine. I'll do it. Well,
why don't you
I'll
read
read
some
some comments and wait for you.
Okay.
He drinks too much water, and because his foot is still healing because he has an ice pack on his foot because he twisted his ankle. He sprained his ankle last weekend, last Saturday, and he's been hobbling around all week, which has also slowed us down a lot. Sydney says, thanks, Nat and Guy. Super warm here in Alberta, only -7. That's one thing I really don't miss about Canada, aside from a lot of other things. But please stay warm. And it is, again, commendable to everybody that is going out there and signing the petitions and canvassing in that kind of weather. So that's an added layer of, and no, how would you say? That's an added layer of, okay, you're back. Talk with me.
Okay, well, we'll read the question.
Well, no, Sydney just said, thanks, Nat and Guy.
Okay.
Thanks, Nat and Guy. Super warm here in Alberta, only -7.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
I was saying I don't miss that about Canada, aside from everything else.
No, I used to work outdoors all the time, and I used to work in really bad conditions in northern BC as well. I understand bad weather, and it just absolutely sucks. The fact that I get to do this now is fantastic.
Tal says it's a balmy -10 here in Red Deer.
Oh my God.
Please stay warm. Sydney says,
well, and if there's a lot of people from Alberta. If you're allowed to have a fireplace in your house, let us know, because they started outlawing them in BC.
Yeah,
they're actually starting to outlaw them here in Mexico. Mexico's having a lot of crazy liberal ideology policies when it comes to climate. And if you have a gas-powered car here in Mexico, you can only drive it certain days of the week.
If it's older.
Yeah. If you have an electric car, then you can ride it 7 days a week.
It's or crazy. Hybrid. Hybrid counts as electric.
Yeah, but
Sydney says Red Deer is awesome. Northwest Calgary here, neighbor. Sorry, I can't read. Deman says, speaking of tax, NDP Naneshi is on the record in support of an Alberta provincial sales tax. Of course. Taxes. That's the only solution they can ever come up with.
Yeah, you really need to rethink taxes on citizens once Alberta is an independent nation. And Donald Trump is kind of the first to, or not the first, there's other oil-bearing nations that do the same. So Alberta would be set up very well for this. And it would really make the rest of Canada like, what the hell is going on? It would be a real middle finger to Mark Carney and the government of Canada if there was no taxes on Albertan citizens.
And Tal says, I worked a project just off MRU during the first year of the jibby jab, I will say, or the woo flu, as Tal said here.
Reread that? What's MRU?
I don't know.
Okay.
But that's what it says. Sydney says 2015 to 19 pre-jibby jab era and pre-mass immigration, the NDP added 40 billion to Alberta debt.
Yeah,
and now they're trying to talk about it like it's all Danielle Smith's fault.
Yeah, I was reading that today and it's ridiculous. The only problem I have with Danielle Smith, I understand there's a lot more people and she has to expand the infrastructure. I just don't like it done the same year that the independence vote is taking place, and I think it can undermine it. Not that it doesn't need to be done, I just don't want to see it done this year.
And then Don Nedalak, I guess, says if you sign twice, they have to throw out both signatures. That's what I was saying. That's what I said. That would trip up the system. So disregard everything he said. Listen to me. Because
I'm glad somebody corrected us, because now I won't repeat that information.
Yes, I corrected you and you didn't believe me.
Yeah.
So believe me next time.
So if you are signing a petition down in the United States, really make sure they have a badge and they're an actual canvasser at this point. Mm-hmm.
And Sydney also says if you sign twice, then you don't want independence, so no loss. That's yes, don't sign twice. If you go to Puerto Vallarta or anywhere else international that you're signing, just sign there.
Yeah, my bad
Disregard
for
him.
that.
Oh, Tal says MRU is Mount Royal University in Calgary.
Ah,
That's a smaller one I didn't know. It existed. Sorry. Again, lived in BC for 13 years.
is that all the comments?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to the posts.
From CCFR says, quote, gun owners react to Caliber Mac's latest revelation that liberal gun confiscation now costs taxpayers $25,000 per declared firearm, pushing the program costs to $800 million with only a 1.6 to 6% compliance rate. Experts say the buyback will easily hit $6 billion plus.
Yeah, and I think in the middle of this video, there may be a break, so you can pause it there.
Okay.
This program so far, with a 1.5% rate of cooperation, has cost us $800 million. And it cost us $25,000 of our own money per firearm. $25,000 per firearm. I'm so done with this liberal government waste. $25,000 per firearm to take away law-abiding citizens' legally acquired property. They're buying it back. It makes no sense. It does nothing for crime, and it cost us $25,000 of our own money
And pause it for a moment. Now, I'm not for government buybacks of firearms at all. I'm very, very pro firearm. But if they would just go out and offer $25,000 per buyback, they would have a lot more success than what they're having now. I have my gun license, but I didn't have any firearms in Canada. I'm constantly getting pestered by the government through email about turn in your firearms. Well, don't you know I don't even have one, you retard.
I don't know what to say anymore, okay? There are millions of Canadians that cannot afford food. This program so far, with a 1.5% rate of cooperation, has cost us $800 million. I don't know what to say anymore. This is theft. This is just theft. When are we going to say enough? On the same day that we get these numbers, we are informed that the Ottawa Police Department will not be participating in this program. The Ottawa Police Department, where all of this is coming from, will not participate. This country, this program, these people are not real people. This is not a real country. None of this makes any sense. It is pure theft.
Yeah, the Ottawa Police Department is not going to participate because they want the Liberals to keep their weapons. That's number one. Number two, on a lot of natural resource sites in British Columbia and across Canada, they're currently having security companies from China coming in, which is basically just a front to allow the CCP into the nation to protect these natural resource sites. And they have illegal weapons based upon Canadian law, but they allow them to have it. It's absolutely ridiculous. And on top of that, that's just phase one. Phase two is they're trying to recruit CCP members and foreign military members from other countries into the Canadian military. That's just absolutely a bridge too far for me.
And it sickens me. Enough is enough. This buyback program has obviously failed. It has done nothing to address the crime that's rampant in our streets. They continue to virtue signal us over and over and over. And now we have spent almost $1 billion on nothing, okay? It's past hilarity at this point. My friends, we need to stand up together and say enough is enough. I think it's the time now, with the amount of waste and corruption in this country, for us to say we will no longer be supporting this machine and the cogs and the oil, which is tax dollars that make it run. Because we're literally being robbed blind, and I, for one, don't know why I'm paying taxes anymore. I don't know. It makes no sense. I feel represented to the tune of 0%. I don't know why. I have no hope for the future under this leadership. Everything isn't real. Everything's an MOU, which is meaningless. They've done literally nothing to make the lives of Canadians better except attack the law-abiding and make our lives worse. I don't know what to say except, if you weren't awake before, now is the time. Write your MP. Be loud.
Okay, and that's
factual.
pretty good for that. I thought there was a break in between, but there wasn't.
But not only,
This is just one of many cultural issues where Alberta just absolutely diverges from the rest of Canada. I mean, Saskatchewan's with them, and maybe some of the interior of BC, but for the most part, the way Canada votes, if they federalize Canada more, that means they're going to take more rights away from the provinces and actually implement a lot of things citizens just don't agree with because it's too big of a country. And Keith Wilson says this all the time. Canada is just too big of a country. Ideologically, there's a split within the country as well.
And I will say, I was going to say it and then I forgot and now I remembered again. He said that they're penalizing and criminalizing law-abiding citizens and taxpayers, but they're also, at least in BC, letting out the actual criminals. There's criminals with like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times that they've gone to jail and they've been let out by the catch and release programs that they're still active and they still are using other kinds of weapons plus firearms as well.
Yeah.
And they don't care about those.
No. And that's the thing, the gun buyback program, and I think we have another article, it's maybe in the Canadian section, but it's not for criminals. They're not trying to get illegal weapons off the street. This is just for law-abiding citizens, people that are already following the law. That's why this program is an absolute complete fraud, at least when it comes to the people. But if you think about it for a minute, the federal government, who are they trying to disarm here? The law-abiding citizens? Why? Because they probably want to implement policies they know a lot of the citizens aren't going to agree with, especially the ones that own firearms.
Mm-hmm. And Sydney says, got it, did work myself at University of Calgary. So we're moving on to the Canadian section after this. That's why I'm reading comments. What?
Nothing.
Okay. Tal says, YouTube may have dropped my earlier comment, but I shared your stream to X again. Thank you so much, Tal. And we do continuously say thank you so much for sharing the streams. I did notice you were sharing them, so thank you so much.
Well, yeah, and the Canadian section today is going to have a lot of stories that have a lot of impact on Alberta independence. Yeah. So
and just to prove the insanity of Canada in general.
Well, yeah, and I think I could have just left it all one big Alberta section today.
And Tal says, LOL, no, I work for a living. It was a big construction reno project on a huge multi-unit building when he was working at the university. Sydney says, that would explain why my gun rack was broken into and I lost all my rifles. And now, and all I know is that it was a vehicle with Ontario plates.
Well, Canadian gun laws are absolutely crazy, especially when I went through the firearms program. You're not even allowed to protect yourself in your own home, which is crazy. There's so many stories of people coming in with crossbows, bow and arrows into people's homes. They had a firearm and when they used it, charges were pressed against the homeowner, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, there is no self-defense in Canada,
yeah,
which is crazy. And especially as a woman living in downtown Vancouver, that is pretty dangerous. And I felt way less safe there, for example, than in Mexico than I ever did.
Where's all this money going? They're talking about this is $25,000 per firearm buyback. Like, just give the money directly to the people if you want to buy it back. Who's lining their pockets with this money? Obviously, the federal government at this point. Police forces aren't actually enforcing this, and they're not going door to door to take firearms. So who are you actually paying in this? Are you spending this on propaganda? Are you just straight lining politicians' pockets?
Because it's not going to food, for example, because as they mentioned there's still big lines at food banks in Canada now because nobody can afford food.
Yeah.
Tal says the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights, or CCFR, whose clip we just played, does a great job covering the gun grab. They also have a YouTube channel. Maybe we can cover them too.
Yeah, we'll start covering them.
We have been using a lot of their stories as well.
Well, I have a resource back in Canada. Maybe I'll call her as well. My family used to own the biggest gun store in Western Canada. My grandfather, before I actually met him, I didn't meet a lot of my family till I was older. That being said, he bought 10,000 AK-47s at one point. Upon delivery, the law had just changed in Canada, so the government sent out a federal worker and agent to make sure my grandfather melted down all 10,000 AK-47s. It absolutely bankrupted him and mentally broke him. And now they're trying to do that to the entire nation of Canada. Mm-hmm. They're not, even when they are buying these things back, they're not giving appropriate compensation.
Which they could. He just showed that they could.
Yeah.
Because it costs $25 per. So.
Yeah.
But let's continue with the insanity. From Daisy Media, quote, "Go get him, Jeff." Quote, "Exclusive, woods for thee, not for me."
Right.
What?
No, nothing. He was in the woods as well, and the last clip was in the woods.
Yes.
So I was thinking, is this the same clip?
No. It seems Tim Houston's Nova Scotia Woods ban does not apply equally to all. Some, like Canadian Forces veteran Jeff Evely, are given $25,000 fines, while others are left completely alone.
Yeah, this is...
we've seen exemptions for Indigenous plays, homeless encampments, and now an LGBTQ wedding.
And he's going to show clips from all this, and it's absolutely ridiculous what's going on. There's a two-tier justice system. We see the same thing happening in the UK, but the fact that there's a ban on the woods...
This was from last August. Remember, they enacted this.
Daisy here. There's been tons of coverage of wildfires in Canada, wildfires in the East Coast, and more specifically, some of the draconian measures that have put in place to try and prevent such fires. In Nova Scotia, Premier Tim Houston enacted $25,000 fines for entering the woods.
Effective 4 p.m. today, we're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods. We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary for most of us. Hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods are not permitted. Trail systems through woods are off limits. The fine for violating any of these bans is the same as the fine for the ban on burning, $25,000.
Canadian Forces veteran Jeff.
They're doing everything. They're doing all of that except actually managing the forests like they've been doing and they had been doing ancestrally. So they have excuses to continue to enact this insanity.
Well, and I knew about this first part because the first person they fined was a Canadian Forces veteran, and I think they fined him $25,000. The part of the story I didn't know was all these other exemptions they gave for the LGBTQ and everybody else. We're going to go into that right here.
For over $28,000, including taxes and victim surcharge. I've also seen a few instances where there have been people in the woods and they don't seem to have the same rules applying. There was an Indigenous festival or play that was allowed to go on in the woods. We've seen a guy in Halifax setting fires. We've heard of homeless encampments in the woods that they seem to be leaving alone. Well, I've come to find out that there is another group of people that seem to be allowed to have major events in the woods. This time, it's a gay wedding. In fact, more specifically, a lesbian wedding, actually, taking place, large lesbian wedding taking place in the Nova Scotia woods. Check out the video here. From what I understand about the woods ban, private property owners are allowed to use their own woods. However, guests are not allowed. So you can't invite someone onto your woods and let them enjoy the woods, or those people would be subject to a $25,000 fine. In this case, it appears that many people who are not property owners of these woods were in attendance. Also of note here, besides the large number of people that were in the woods, probably not on their own property, this wedding was officiated by a justice of the peace. So a government employee, a justice of the peace, was in the woods with all these people, I imagine many of them not on their own property, officiating this ceremony. So that's very interesting. If anything, government employees, I would think, should be held to a higher standard than the everyday person. I would say that this is further proof that this isn't about safety or fire prevention. If we're willing to change the rules for special interest groups, then what are we doing here?
Okay, and stop it there and go down a little bit. And this is the judge. No, was this the judge? No, I think this was the first guy that was fined. That was the veteran, maybe. What was it? God, I lost my train of thought. Oh, I was going to say that's a fantastic video. A lot of people forgot about that situation. This is one of those big memeable moments that especially the U.S. media will pick up on. A lot of people forgot about that story, and I didn't know the whole second half of that story where they were given all kinds of special exemptions, and it seems like the exemptions that were given for very specific types of groups. That was a very specific kind of ideology.
The forever protected ones for ideological reasons.
Yeah.
But it's insane too, because you can see during that video that it looks pretty dry there where they were doing that wedding.
Well, and I was glad he brought up the point that, yeah, you probably have a wedding on private property, but again, they were very specific on all the news. If it's your house,
you can't have a guest.
You can't have any guests, so you can have one guest over.
Oh, okay.
I think it was.
Whatever it was, but it's insane. But now from anti-boomer, quote, Mark Carney spent 4 days in India and all he got for it was announcing a $5.5 billion uranium deal that was already negotiated by other people. We trade $3.5 billion with the USA every single day. 5.5 won't even put a dent in this year's deficit.
Well, yeah, and he's going around the world taking
credit.
And
now he went to Australia to go hide.
He's going around the world taking credit for deals that were already in motion and that were already to be had.
That were already done.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And yeah, I was going to say he was hiding. He didn't meet with the press for a long time. He finally met today. That's why I took out that article. So,
which one?
There was an article saying Mark Carney was hiding from the news, which he was. That's why he keeps going on these international tours. Yeah. So he literally can just avoid the press.
But yeah, he's been having to face up to it, especially now with the Iran-US conflict, and he's flip-flopped on that too.
Well, we're going to go into that. We have an article about that. That being said, I guess it's to his benefit because his freaking poll numbers keep going through the roof, which is crazy. I'm glad to see Poilievre finally taking the bull by the horns and going to international independent media, which he should have done in the last election. Yes. He was way ahead in the polls. He tanked it. And you can't really blame it on Trump when you weren't willing to do everything in your power.
Yep. And speaking about the India deal and the China deal that Carney has been working on too, from Table Salt, quote, okay, wait a second. Is Canada cutting education grants for Canadians while offering new $100 million grant and 400 research jobs for Indian nationals? Are you kidding me? This country is so effed up.
Yeah, this is an absolute crazy story. I mean, the financial situation of Canada, the fact that you're giving this kind of grants out to migrants is crazy to me. And I'm sure they're advertising this overseas as well.
And it says, quote, Ford government faces backlash after lifting the tuition freeze and capping OSAP grant to 25%.
Canadian citizens should be getting these grants, period. I think the next...
This one?
Yeah, you can go into this.
Yes, from Moose on the Loose, and we have been talking about Carney and his shady past and current shadiness too. He discovered quite a bit more as well and has been publicizing it for a while.
And he's been doing an absolutely fantastic job really following Carney and putting all the dots together. So
it says, is Mark Carney sending billions to Ukraine to save Brookfield's assets and contracts?
Does anyone else find it suspicious that Brookfield buys Westinghouse in 2018? They clean up this company. They eventually sell it over to Brookfield Renewables. Mark Carney puts it into Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1, the very fund that he makes 3% carried interest off of. He name drops Westinghouse during the election. He name drops the companies that are working with them, GE Hitachi. And throughout the past year, he's been sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. June 17th, $2 billion. August 24th, 2025, another.
And people just don't understand. This is billions and billions of dollars he keeps sending over to Ukraine, and he has his henchmen. Oh God, what's her name now?
Which one? I looked the other way. Sorry. Which one?
Oh God, what's her name?
Who?
The girl that's running Ukraine now. For free, she said, "Oh, I'm not."
Freeland, Chrystia.
Yeah, Chrystia Freeland. He has her over there, making sure all the money gets into all the right pockets and makes it back around to his pockets and his buddies in Brookfield Asset Management. He just gave another $2 billion just last week.
$2 billion in military support. December 27th, $2.5 billion. February 24th, just a week ago, he sends another $2 billion to Ukraine. Could it be that Mark Carney and Brookfield Asset Management both have interest in Westinghouse's nuclear reactors called Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, ZNPP, which has been currently captured by the Russians back in 2022. It sits on this peninsula, which you can see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 reactors that Brookfield has exclusive contract to supply uranium through Chemco. This is a huge deal that is not being fulfilled because Russia shut down this power plant 2 years ago. And just a few days ago, Russia said they're going to be firing this power plant back up and likely using their own uranium, cutting Brookfield out of the deal, which negatively affects Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1, Carney's very fund that he gets 3% of the interest off of. Interesting timing.
Yeah, and we're going to go into another story that's related to this, and this just shows the outward corruption of Mark Carney. People are looking at him with a microscope right now, and things are just laid bare for the public. You can go into the next article. It's related.
Well, you were saying I was going too quickly. Jeff Rath says, quote, Atlantic Canada gets an LNG shipment from Brookfield, Australia. Can we all just connect the dots now? And yeah, Atlantic Canada gets natural gas shipment from Australia, not Alberta. Is set to receive its first shipment of Australian liquefied natural gas after shipping it 25,000 kilometers across the ocean instead of just purchasing Canadian LNG directly from Alberta.
Yeah, and I just want to keep connecting the dots here. This is Brookfield Asset Management, again, owns a lot of these assets. That's why they're buying it and shipping it halfway across the world when Alberta and other provinces have more than enough supply. And even if it costs more within Canada, because of your carbon tax you're putting on your own nation, it would still have added benefits to pay the higher price and buy Canadian, like you keep saying. But then you look at the Ukraine thing on top of that. I mean, the amount of corruption, and it's obvious, it's Brookfield Asset Management and Mark Carney, and that's all the dots you need to connect.
Yes. And again, a lot of this information was known even before he was installed, but also before the election to appoint him properly. All of this and the Brookfield Asset Management thing, the moving it to the US, the connections with other worldwide oil and gas companies and the assets that Brookfield Asset Management had invested in those, that was also already known. But because the Canadian propaganda media did such a good job trying to hide that and try to excuse always...
Well, it doesn't
What's
matter.
the phrase I was trying to use?
Well, it doesn't matter if they
Continuously excuse it. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like at this point, everybody knows now, and it just doesn't seem to be affecting his poll numbers whatsoever. Liberals have been so propagandized. It's orange man bad.
Yeah, that's the only thing that matters.
Elbows up.
Lemmings.
And the fact is, like Mark Carney won on TDS alone last time. Now he has nationalists versus independents. He's only going to propel himself to a majority government. His polling numbers are absolutely shocking at this point.
Lemmings, I'll continue to say. Speaking of lemmings, from Ryan Gurdison, quote, judging by Jolie's response, she couldn't care less if there was, and why would she, if foreign interference was benefiting another party, you can bet she would have a much different tone. Well, and they always have, because they also try to excuse the whole Justin Trudeau corruption scandal.
And this is why Alberta independence is so important. The only person you need protection from right now in Canada is the federal government itself.
Do you believe there's foreign interference happening right now from India in Canada?
Listen, it's not for me to have an opinion whether there is or not. There are people that are in charge of making sure that people are safe at home in every single circumstances. And these are our police forces, and these are our national security agencies. And they have to do their job, and I'm convinced they are. And when they have proof, then they can trial. And that's exactly how our system, which is based on the rule of law, works. And so when it comes to any form of vulnerabilities of foreign interference in our country, this was extremely studied by an entire public inquiry that lasted more than 6 months. And so I'm convinced that we're taking every single step to make sure that Canadians are safe, and at the same time that we can navigate geopolitics at a time of turmoil.
Do you believe?
Yeah, her messaging is, we, the Canadian government, are keeping you safe. It's the Canadian government that is the threat, and that's how a lot of citizens see it at this point. They're financially bankrupting families across the nation with unruly taxes, and the kind of ideology they're bringing in through law and blanketing Canada with it is just driving Canada off a cliff at this point.
But also, don't ask us about it, and let's try not to talk about our own investigations into actual interference. For example, from the CCP, there's been CSIS investigation after CSIS investigation that continues to find this out. And for some reason, everybody also always forgets the We Charity scandal with Justin Trudeau as well. Everything that has to do with Mark Carney and his Brookfield Asset Management. Everybody just doesn't want to talk about it. Even when it's the same, they themselves that have looked into it and discovered that there is interference, they blow past it.
What country were they talking about there? India. That's the same country. We're giving how much was it? $100 million in grants to Indian students. Is this the same country we're giving all of our Canadian pension fund $100 billion to India, and we're investing in India? Is this the same country we literally want to replace Canada with? We have an article coming up. I think the date was 2032. 100% of the Canadian population growth will be from immigration. They're no longer looking to replace with birth rates anymore. And this is another thing a lot of people don't know. Alberta is the one province in Canada that is above has a high birth rate.
A higher birth rate. They're not a replacement though.
Yeah.
Like all of Canada, all of the world right now is in a population collapse that continue. I did a bunch of videos.
I think Alberta is above.
It was a 1.5, replacement rate is 2.3.
For Alberta?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Alberta was a 1.6, replacement rate globally should be around 2.3.
Yeah, okay.
1.8, 2.3 depends on what you're looking at. Like, of course, South Korea is going to have to be a bit higher. But in general, even Latin America, and I've done a bunch of videos about this, is in population collapse. Everything is below replacement rate. And they've been lying about this continuously while they continue to push things like abortion and don't have kids and put all the women into the workforce, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and import more and more migrants to do the replacement, because that's the easiest way to do it.
Article.
Yeah. That's why I was going into it.
This article was on my mind all day. This is absolutely crazy. Mark Carney is saying, no more immigration to Canada because Trump's there. And he's preparing all the legislation. If you currently have immigrated to Canada, all your family members are now eligible. We just wait till Trump's out of office, and we're going to make up for lost time. And this is just another example of that.
From YG Wave, quote, a federal report projects that by 2032, immigration will drive 100% of Canada's population growth, with newcomers expected to fully offset natural population declines. So this is how they're going to do it. Not encouraging people to have families, not making it easier to have a life within Canada, not doing anything about the whole abortion and death cult thing they have going on, not reducing MAID program, but by just importing more and more people.
Well, and not even going to countries where you have a similar culture. We're going to go to a country that has literally
a bunch of countries.
And you're not giving a unifying identity for these people to even integrate into, assuming that they would integrate it into.
No, you're saying
crazy.
just pretend you're in your own country, but with a slightly better conditions.
Well, and then I was seeing other posts on this particular thing. I almost grabbed it. And it's like, why are you taking people from a country that are disrespecting their own country? And I mean, the country is just in shambles with garbage all over the street and everything else. If they can't respect their own country, what makes you think they're going to respect yours?
Import the third world, become the third world. The UK has learned, and a lot of other European countries too, and Canada at this rate, I would say as well.
I don't think they've learned yet.
Well, no, I mean, the citizens have learned of the impacts, at least the ones that continue to suffer under all of these immigration policies. But I mean, the globalist elites, of course, going to continue to go down that path. So they can continue to rule over those that will just kneel and say, yes, thank you.
Okay, let's go into, I think we got Polyev next.
Yes. Do we want me to read comments before we go into all of Polyev or no?
Yeah, so we got...
Because we have a lot about Polyev coming up.
And I give Polyev a hard time, and I believe in Alberta independence, not nationalism. I think if Polyev even wins a minority government, it's not enough power. He's not going to be able to fix Canada. He does have the right prescriptions, and he knows where to fix it. The problem is he'll never get a majority government in order to make those fixes unless Alberta separates, and that causes Quebec to separate because they no longer get remittance payments. If Quebec and Alberta both separate, surprisingly, Canada by seats becomes very, very conservative at that point, and then you have the super country of Alberta being conservative, and then you have the country of Canada being conservative.
Tal says, I feel damn old considering that I started with a firearms acquisition license when I was 16 years old. You're old too.
I'm getting old too. My back's going out, everything else. I can't even walk. I've been walking with a cane because I rolled my ankle.
Demand says carbon tax carnival man isn't concerned about all his carbon emissions with all his jet setting because he knows it's all just BS. Well, and because he's able to buy all the carbon credits off through his company and through other companies off of all of the citizens who will continue to be restricted because of the carbon and net zero impositions that they have. The rich can buy the credits off of people and off of corporations.
Carney's the one that designed.
That's the whole plan.
Carney designed this entire economic system around carbon credits and everything else. It was supposed to be the new economy of the Western world. Donald Trump's throwing a monkey wrench into that. And we know it's a scam because of the study we showed on the last show. And that was the one country in the world that's net negative for carbon output because it has so many trees and so much land mass is Canada. So why is Canada having to meet carbon quotas when naturally they pull more carbon out of the air than they actually emit? It's a complete scam, and it's laid bare when you look at that specific study and how many trees are in Canada and how much carbon they're sucking up. They don't need this new green economy.
Of course they don't.
But they're the ones pushing harder than any other country.
Demand says Freeland Witch. Yes, and thank you for reminding us of the name. Hope I could forget it. Tal says, yeah, and everything that Skid Mark the Carney does related to the somehow that somehow benefits Brookfield or one of its subsidiaries. Subsidiaries, exactly.
If you ever wonder,
it's all connected.
If you ever wonder, like, why is he doing that? It looks like a weird move. It makes no sense. Why are you buying stuff from halfway across the world when you literally Alberta makes it? It's because it's Brookfield Asset Management every single time. And I will say Moose on the Loose has done a good job connecting Brookfield, all Brookfield's companies to Mark Carney. So if you ever have any questions, that is a good channel to go to for that.
And also that other thing we showed, I think it was Mario for the North. I'm not going to find it right now, but that website that was just created, the new document website with everything that Carney and the connections that Carney has as well. Demand says, OMG, it's hard to hear or watch anything that comes out of a liberal's stupid mouth. But I mean, again, as annoying as it is, you do have to keep up on it, and you do have to keep up on the new insanity that continuously comes out of Canada and out of liberals and progressives, because otherwise you get surprised when they start enacting them.
Even with the new website for Mark Carney, and even with the great work Moose on the Loose has done, kind of connecting the dots of corruption, liberals are so ideological at this point, it doesn't matter what Mark Carney does, they're going to vote Mark Carney in. They're all in on it. They're all in on the guy, and that's going to be the issue there.
Sorry. Tal says, I was checking out the website that Mario Zaltar, Mario for the North, just launched the other day. It looks like it's going to be a real PIT-ASS for Carney and the LPC too, hopefully. But again, how many Canadians actually care? How many Canadians will actually go to that or look into it or even listen to the levels of corruption that exist? Lemmings.
No, Canadians do care, and conservative Canadians do care.
Yes.
The issue is the political system in Canada is rigged. So you have taxation without representation. The Western votes just don't matter. So even though all conservatives in Canada will go to that website, will know all the corruption that's going on, it doesn't matter because their vote doesn't matter because the way the Canadian political system is rigged.
Exactly. And Sydney says it's Carnida, not Canada. And also says Quebec Barbie for, what's her name?
Christopher.
No, the other one.
Oh, Melanie Jolie.
Yes. Unjolie, in my opinion. And because I promised him, I will read Ethel's comments because he did leave some on RUMBLE. And hello to everybody else that's on RUMBLE. I do read your comments, I promise. So let's start. Ethel says, silently listening. Thank you. And also says, however, the gun owner guy said that he doesn't know why he's still paying taxes. Speaking of which, Nat and Guy, do you know why you are still paying taxes? No, to subsidize governments that don't work.
Yeah, and that's the issue.
And because if I don't, I can go to jail. So.
And that's the issue with the paradigm of taxes, and especially property tax. It makes absolutely no sense at this point. Again, I'll say it and I'll continue to say it. When Alberta becomes a country, there should be no property tax, especially if you've paid your home outright. This benefits especially senior citizens.
Or you've paid anything outright. You shouldn't have to pay taxes on it. And now they're trying to impose more on other things too.
Yeah.
Ethel says, Nat just mentioned something about putting women into the workforce. Just curious how Nat is seeing herself in the workforce. Should Nat work or would Guy provide for the entire family?
Well, I wish I could provide for the entire family, but she's a much better editor than I am.
Yeah. And I mean, I do like doing this. I wouldn't consider this fully work either.
Yeah.
And what I like when it's something that I actually want to do, and not just having to sit at a desk, like that's what I consider actual work. If you're actually doing something.
It's great how you're saying that now, but when I ask you to edit something for the morning, it becomes work then.
Well, it takes a while, and it does get to be a bit of work.
Oh, by the way, if you're not subscribed, please do so. We're a small channel, and we're really trying to grow at this point. I'm noticing more censorship now because we've focused so heavily on the Alberta independence movement. I think the censors are starting to notice.
To realize.
Yeah.
But I will say about the whole workforce thing just quickly, and maybe eventually we can do a video about it. We used to talk a bit more about that, but I think a lot of people look to, for example, the 50s when women wouldn't work and then the men would go off and do the work and come back, and it was enough to be able to have a house, have a car, and have a family on just one income. But what I look towards is to the more agrarian societies where men and women did work, but they worked within the home together, doing things together, and also teaching their children while they worked for themselves within their house and for their smaller communities, and everybody could trade and help each other out. I think when people look to the 50s, they're not really considering what used to be there beforehand that used to work a lot better and used to keep families together during much longer periods of time and whole communities together during much longer periods of time. So I don't think, for example, saying women shouldn't work at all. I just think women and men should work together within their own household and mainly focusing on teaching their children through the work they do together.
Globalization.
So we're kind of doing that.
Globalization plus putting women into the workforce dramatically suppressed wages, and now we're getting this same thing that happened when women started working. Instead of women, you're now getting immigration. So they're flooding these Western nations with immigration, which is massively suppressing the wage even more than when women entered the workforce. And then on top of that, there's the talk of robotics, and when that enters the workforce, what the hell is going to happen then? I mean,
maybe we could go back to agrarian societies. Everybody's
going to have a farm to grow their own. Everybody's going to have a farm to grow their own food because they're not going to be able to afford to buy it at that point.
Yeah. But in my opinion, that would be ideal. And Ethel asks, do you see yourself developing a local agrarian society, Nat? That's kind of that's the goal. Eventually, we would like to have a farm or something.
If the YouTube station's ever successful enough, we would love to have a homestead.
Yeah, and film that too.
Let's go back to the post.
Just quickly, Sydney says, because we're on the topic, Sydney says, Freeland asked Jolie which is closer, the moon or Florida. Jolie answered, duh, the moon, obviously. You can see it.
And there was something I was reading the other day. Oh, God.
Those are your politicians.
Hopefully I'm right on this. Ottawa's Alberta is closer to Mexico than it is to Ottawa on the map, I guess.
I'll look into it.
I was
but
seeing something. I'll check it.
maybe you
just to
can become
verify.
Mexico. You don't want that. But yeah, let's move on to Pierre Poilievre because we have been basically just skirting around the issue, but now, sorry, I'm trying to look which one. There we go. But now let's actually get
he's
into
making a tour of the EU, and
he's been talking
a lot of great speeches. He's doing a lot of independent media. As much as I don't think he's going to be able to change Canada because he can't get a majority government, I do like what he's saying. It's literally $1 late, a day late, and $1 short. He should have been doing this independent media tour on the last election when his poll numbers were high. Okay.
And again, this has been a frustration of ours for years now with him. From Mark Nixon, quote, Poilievre obliterated the left. Liberalism is a disease that steals from the many and gives to the few.
Well, and he comes around to these right conclusions just a little bit too late when Mark Carney's already ready.
And he can't do anything.
When Mark Carney's ready with his next election, he's going to use TDS and he's going to use Alberta independence to shed votes from Pierre Poilievre.
And in that case, Poilievre is making the same case or trying to make a very similar case to what Carney is. So what's the difference?
As much as I like Poilievre and the conclusions he's come to, sometimes I just ask, is he controlled opposition at this point?
I mean, the tool definitely was.
They don't let him come to these conclusions until the Liberals' next phase is ready and they're prepared, and they're already prepared for this.
For generations, free markets lowered costs, raised wages, and lifted billions out of poverty. Yet, they're facing major pushback today from the twin threats of socialism and protectionism. That risks turning the wealth of nations into the poverty of the people. How did this happen? The answer, if we're being honest, is that there is a backlash because working people across the Western world have been thoroughly betrayed. Wages lag, housing is out of reach, energy costs soar, opportunities blocked, and the silent thief of inflation has robbed buying power. The state took from the hardworking many to enrich the privileged few. It's not that the government left working people behind, rather, it priced them out and shut them out altogether. Net zero policies drove energy and food costs up and paychecks down, all to fill the pockets of green grifters. Protected monopolies shielded from competition keep prices high. Corporate welfare enriched insiders at taxpayers' expense. Gatekeepers blocked home building, resource development, and infrastructure, shutting workers from jobs and youth from homes. Licensing bureaucracies stopped immigrants from working in their professions, including in our hospitals, while mass migration drove wages down and rental costs up and social services into the ground. And worst of all, inflationary money printing robbed savings and paychecks from working people while ballooning the assets of connected insiders. That is the inflation tax, the most unjust and immoral tax.
Okay, you can pause it. It's almost over there. I agree with everything he said, and it's a great prescription. But this is why you vote Alberta independence, because you can actually implement the policies if Alberta gets independence. I don't think Pierre Poilievre, even if he gets a minority government, he won't be able to change it because the other parties will block him, and the Canadian political system is set up so Pierre Poilievre will never get a majority, and that's a damn shame because he's saying what everybody knows needs to be fixed in Canada and exactly how to fix it.
He's giving the right and correct prescription, however, too little, too late, and without the actual power to enact anything to fix it.
Yeah, and very often there is a lot of contradictions because when he's talking about a lot of that, it was globalization that really wrecked wages in Canada and took out the middle class. But when he was asked about China on his most recent interview, he wouldn't come out against China and say, no, we need to put
he was praising China.
We need to put Canada first.
Do you want to finish that one or go to the next?
Well, yeah, and also he just has Trump derangement. He has Trump derangement syndrome, and he's scared if he praises Trump in any way, shape, or form that the voters in Canada are going to turn against him. He's going to need to change that paradigm.
Yep. Do you want to go back to that one or no?
Which one? No, we can go to the next one. He's made a series of good speeches, and I like what he's saying. But again,
But what actual good does it do if nobody's listening and there's no way to move forward with it?
Well, yeah, again, if you want to implement these policies that he's saying, vote Alberta independence because it will happen overnight.
From Juno News, quote, Poilievre slams the Carney government for accepting permanent U.S. tariffs, saying Canada should use its exports as leverage. You're only getting what you need if you get what we want.
What separates your vision for the future of Canada-U.S. relations with Mark Carney's vision?
Well, there's a couple things. One, I believe that we need to be stronger at home so that we have a leverage abroad. So what does that mean? we're dealing with a president, but ultimately a country that respects leverage, and we need to maximize what leverage we have going into any review discussion on custody.
And that's a wrong analysis. He's saying they respect leverage. We have to play hardball with them. That's Carney's plan as well. They both have the same plan on that front, and it's the wrong way to negotiate. Look at Mexico. Mexico is making out like a bandit, and they have a extremely liberal government in power right now. Trump allows her to talk shit on the surface about Trump, but behind the scenes, economically, it's complete cooperation. And with the U.S. trade war with China, 1 out of every $4 they pull back from China, they're now investing in Mexico and manufacturing from Mexico. They're also looking to have the Kuzma trade deal with Mexico on its own.
Bilaterally. Yeah.
Bilaterally. So you don't need to play hardball because Sheinbaum is not playing hardball. She's capitulating.
So what do we have as leverage? There's the obvious where
Canada cannot play hardball because they're not in a position to try to play hardball, and that's why it's such a disaster right now.
The kind of leverage he's talking about is going to take 10 to 15 years to build. It's possible because Canada is rich in natural resources. It's going to take a long time to build that. Alberta is in a good position. They could actually implement his strategy, but I don't even think they would need to. They have good relationships with Donald Trump and the United States already.
the second biggest customer for the Americans, but there's much more that makes us unique. One, we represent the biggest share of airspace in the hemisphere. We have 10 of the 12 NATO-defined critical minerals that would be necessary if, God forbid, the world went back to war. We have the fourth biggest supply of energy, and we have the capacity to rebuild our military to the mutual prosperity of both of our countries. Now, how do we leverage?
What did you just say? He said, Western Canada has everything we need. None of that stuff is in the East. Mm-hmm. And even where it is, like in Quebec with natural gas and some other things, use it. They refuse to use it. It's Western Canada that is rich in all these things that he wants to use as leverage against the United States.
Leverage that. Well, we need to unlock our resources. I would repeal all the anti-development laws that the government has built up so that we can rapidly mine these minerals. And then I would set up a strategic mineral and energy reserve, access to which for the Americans would be dependent on their providing us tariff-free trade over our border. Second, I would say to the Americans that we are going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars buying armaments and military technology.
And again, I agree with a lot of this with natural resources and stuff like that. But he brought this talking point up on almost all of his interviews, and he put it more clearly in the interview we were watching before the show, where he says the ultimate goal is tariff-free trade with the United States. What he fails to mention is Canada is the one that implemented all the tariffs against the United States for decades before the United States finally decided to do it back. So when he says tariff-free trade, is he talking about mutual tariff-free trade going both ways, or is he talking about just tariff-free trade from the United States, but we want to keep our tariffs on them? Because when Donald Trump first started the negotiations, what he offered up was he wanted complete tariff-free trade from Canada, but Canada's entire economy was based around kind of a secret tariffs they were putting on the United States for decades. And he continues to tell that lie because Canadians don't know that they've been tariffing the United States for so long. So I'm very...
And they've tried to excuse it for the ones that have realized what was happening.
And the amount we spend south of the border will be contingent on tariff-free access to the United States. And finally, we need to, by unblocking our way to the coasts, we give ourselves the ability to sell our oil and gas and other resources overseas, which gives us optionality so that the Americans are no longer our captive. We're no longer a captive supplier to the Americans. All those things will give us a leverage, and I would use that leverage to negotiate my singular objective, which is that we have tariff-free access to the states while remaining a sovereign economy.
And he's talking about building pipelines to the coast and all that, which is great. And that is a solution. So he has the right thing, but it takes a long, long time to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's not really going to affect the tariff negotiations with the United States right now. Yeah. And that's probably one of the biggest pieces of leverage would be to diversify your economy, but you're not going to be able to do that before you get a trade agreement. So you're going to have to make compromises here with the United States. Even a bad trade deal at this point is going to be better than what Mark Carney has.
Economy and country.
And you think that leverage could do that? Tariff-free?
That's the goal. You start with the most ambitious possible goal. I don't know why the Carney government is conceding or waving the white flag in accepting that there will be permanent and unfair and unreciprocated American tariffs on Canadian goods. I would rather go to the United States and say, look, these are the things that you need that we have, and you're only getting them if we get what we want, which is we want to be able to sell our products into the biggest and most lucrative economy the world has ever seen.
Okay, that was the end. And Carney is doing that. Like right now, he's trying to play that hardball card. Sheinbaum in Mexico is not playing that that hardball card, and that hardball card doesn't work because you don't have a diversified economy with your natural resources to the coast. Number one, because you're not accessing your natural resources. Number two, you don't have a way to through pipelines to get them to the coast. Now with Poilievre, you fix a lot of that because he is willing to access the natural resources, which is step one. Step two is to find multiple trading partners and get access to the coast. But again, that takes time. Okay.
More incredible speeches by Pierre Poilievre during his Europe tour. Too little, too late.
And this is much shorter, and then we'll go into comments after this. So if you have any comments.
Well, we have one more after this, just because we want to talk about that interview with Trigonometry. But from Mark Nixon, quote, incredible speech by Pierre Poilievre. Energy is power, and power is freedom. And he's in Berlin pitching Canadian energy.
And I'll just say one more thing. Outside of Alberta, they have far too much hope in Pierre Poilievre. They want to pump him up, and they're willing to kind of look the other way and not have a realist perspective on a lot of this stuff. And that's an issue because they're not willing to admit it's almost nearly impossible with the Canadian electoral system for Poilievre to get a majority government, and he'll need a majority to fix Canada.
But I also get why they have that sliver of hope, because he is that only sliver of hope. He is the only one that is kind of talking about this on a federal level, aside from Bernier, but unfortunately nobody listens to him. However,
I've lost hope in him, obviously, because I left Canada and I lost hope in all the federal government. The fact that Alberta is doing what it's doing and finally standing up and has an opportunity to change the paradigm gives me a lot of hope in Alberta, but still not in the federal government.
Energy is not a side issue. It is the foundation. No army moves without fuel. No industry runs without power. No home stays warm in winter without heat. When energy comes from the regimes that do not share our values, our choices narrow and our leverage fades. If we want to defend freedom abroad, we must secure the means to sustain it at home. Power must be powered. Freedom must be fueled. That is true for Germany, for Canada, and for every nation that intends to shape its own future rather than have it shaped by others. Energy is not a side.
I'll say this, there was a lot of clips I left out of his tour of Europe, but when he went to all these countries, who did he meet with? He met with a lot of the conservative parties that are loser parties in these countries, like the UK. He met with Liz Truss and a bunch of other people that are paid bought for shills and part of the Uniparty. He didn't even meet with Reform UK, and a lot of people are even upset with Reform UK right now.
I mean, there's Restore Britain coming up and getting a lot of support.
If he would have met with Restore Britain, that would have been the power move.
Yes, but again,
but he's meeting with a bunch of losers over in the EU that can't even win elections for themselves. He won't meet with the hardcore conservative governments in the EU, like Hungary,
because he's not
like Italy.
He's not the hardcore conservative government.
Well, he doesn't want to be seen. He doesn't want to be seen with those people because they're too close to Trump, and he's trying to put a distance between him and Trump. He needs to take a different strategy.
Work for him, exactly, which doesn't work for him. You just sounded like Trump there. He's meeting with all the losers, all the loser conservative parties in Canada.
Well,
but it's true.
In the EU.
In the EU, sorry. And in Canada. Two more about
Poilievre. Because he has all the right prescriptions, and all those prescriptions are being implemented by the hardcore conservative governments in Eastern Europe primarily and the US. But
and actually being able to be implemented by them.
But he won't be seen with them. But he has their policies. But if he's too scared to even be seen with them, how does he expect to actually pitch these policies?
From Mark Nixon, Pierre Poilievre says, being leader of the opposition is the worst job in the world. He is just a commoner. He's just the same as everybody else.
Fascinating conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to do it, and it's good to talk to you. Hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mansbridge.
You can call me Peter.
Well, I would have, but you called me Mr. Poilievre, so I didn't want to be presumptuous.
You're the leader of the opposition. His Majesty's loyal opposition.
It's the worst damn job in the country. You should be calling me by my first name. I'm a mere commoner, after all.
Fascinating.
It is. He looks like controlled opposition there.
Yeah.
That's after I seen that clip, it's like, has he been in controlled opposition all this time? He always comes to the right conclusion, but he always does it a day late and a dollar short.
Or years late and billions short, if you want to see it that way. But
what do I mean by day late and a dollar short? It's when the Liberals are already prepared for their next step and to counteract that conclusion. He's never ahead of it.
When they're already doing whatever he's saying that they should do, in very rare cases when they do. So it becomes a moot talking point for him as well, because they're already taking it and running with it, like hating on Trump.
Yeah.
And this is the interview that we do kind of want to end on this Poilievre thing with, because, and we're not watching it right now, but we do want to comment on it and make a video about it, because the guy kept yelling at the TV.
I was yelling at the TV, and I agree with everything he was saying in there. The issue, oh God. And it was a very softball-friendly interview. I wish they would have asked follow-up, harder questions with a lot of the answers he gave. That being said, this was the right move to use all this independent media, and it would have worked if he would have done it in the last election. The problem was, who was his campaign manager? Oh, his ex-girlfriend. And who sabotaged that last campaign. Absolutely.
Allegedly.
Well, it didn't sabotage it, but she didn't.
It didn't work.
She didn't know what to do. You needed to go to independent media on a global basis, because Canadian media was going to absolutely shut you out.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even do independent media in Canada that often.
Yeah.
The biggest phenomenon in the Western world over the last decade or two has been the total betrayal of the working class. The people who make stuff, fix stuff, move stuff, and build stuff, their opportunities are absolutely destroyed by massive government interventions that have concentrated wealth among a very small group of well-connected insiders.
You're focusing on the narrow economic part of it, but I think what Francis is alluding to is there's
the same thing.
Well, is it though? Because there's a cultural and ideological dimension to this as well. Because say the policy of net zero, which is just economic suicide, it's the same thing.
Exactly the same thing, because it's being used as a pretext to concentrate money and power in the hands of the state.
And again, that's it. This is a fantastic interview. I highly actually recommend it, even though I was yelling at the TV. But when they talked about green policies there, again, a day late and a dollar short, he was very scared to touch that issue because there was so much propaganda around it in Canada. Now that it's popular, okay, he'll go there. And all of his policies are very Trump-like. And he wants to put Canada first, just like Trump wants to put the United States first. But he has so much TDS. It's very obvious a lot of the policies that he wants to put into action are Trump-like policies, but he won't praise Trump, or he won't. Talk about it. There's really a contradiction in action there, and it's going to be seen in the election, especially when Mark Carney starts going after him with knives out.
But now I'll read your comments. Tal says, and I think you will agree with this, Tal says, Pierre Poilievre really should go on Rogan. It was a big mistake not to have done that during the run-up to the 25 federal election, and that's what we keep saying.
And Rogan wanted to have him. I mean, Gavin Newsom is begging to get on Rogan, and Rogan's not going to be friendly to Gavin Newsom. He understands. But was it Poilievre or was it his ex-girlfriend? Because that's who was running his media campaign,
That's
which was
what's
crazy.
so frustrating about this man.
His wife should have put the foot down.
I would. From Joe Rush says, oh, Canada, we tried our best to stay, but Liberal clowns, they pushed us away with production caps and carbon tax. The truth we can now see from far and wide, oh, Canada, we did our best for thee.
Oh, he's a poet, doesn't even know it.
Well, I think it's a new anthem. Well, it should be the new anthem. Tal says,
and there's a lot of good songs coming out of Alberta from it. They're using AI, but man,
for independence.
Yeah, I don't put them on the stream because I don't want to get copyrighted for anything. But yeah.
Tal Talk says, if it wasn't for the voice, I doubt I would have recognized Mansbridge. He looks like he knows Kenny Rogers' plastic surgeon. And Joe Rush continues, God keep Alberta glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we did our best for thee. Oh, Canada, we're done and we will be free.
Yeah, it's time. And even if Mark Carney has to do something completely underhanded and break the law to stop Alberta from leaving, this is why we need international press. This is why it's important to have content creators not only from Canada, but from the US and countries all around the world. Because when he oversteps his bounds, we want to shine a light on that thing.
Yes. And Tal Talks says to Joe Rush, everyone that I've spoken to while petitioning is like myself, proud to be a Canadian and sad to be forced to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I went to Canada. I went to college there. I wanted to try and live there and set up a life because I was sold this whole idea and notion that that was possible and that it would be way better. And just realizing that that wasn't going to happen was a bit shocking at first, but at the same time, it was untenable to try and stay.
Alberta's at the point, finally, they're like, no matter what Canada gives us, we're ready to go. And we were there a few years ago, and you'll find people that are originally from Canada, have left the country, are the most aligned with Alberta because they had to make that same decision in their own life. And let me tell you, it's not an easy decision when you feel betrayed by your own government. Time and time and time again. It wasn't just like once. And I'm glad I left because they would have kept doing it. And Alberta's come to that same conclusion, but as a collective, which is good to see.
And Joe Rush says, I was proud to be Canadian until I was ostracized for not getting jabbed.
Yeah.
Same. I got a $7,000 ticket that I had to go dispute within the courts myself. And after months and months and months of going back and forth to the court as my own self-representative, they decided to drop it because they realized they had no case with any of us. And there was a bunch of us that were going to court by ourselves and using the charter and helping each other out to figure out the legal system in Canada to be able to get past the ticket. And in the end, they were just like, yeah, we have no basis for it. Sorry to scare you for months on end.
Yeah.
And then we also kind of overstepped jobs because we're just not going to do it.
Well, before we were covering the Alberta independence movement so heavily, we did geopolitics, but a lot of the stories I would cover would always relate back to that era and how they overstepped and how the Canadian government is continuing to overstep their bounds time and time again. And sometimes we would have little to no views. And I'm like, why am I talking about this? But I'm like, because it's close to my heart and it matters to me. And now that this Alberta independence thing came back, all those same issues are things that should be important to Albertans and they're a place in the world that haven't forgotten those things, hopefully yet. And when it comes time to vote, they will vote on Canada's past actions over the last decade.
Yep. Do you want me to read the RUMBLE comments or not?
Read one and then we'll go back.
Quite a few. Ethel says, oh, hold on. I messed it up.
We'll read two and then we'll go back and finish up.
Okay. Ethel says, guys, Pierre Poilievre used to have a nerdy accountant style. Then they used voters' money and hired a PR firm that made him remove the spectacles and pretend to be masculine and bold. Which version of Pierre Poilievre do you like more? Is it OG style or bold and masculine, which I don't see it as masculine.
I didn't care either way. And that's why when that liberal show started talking about Jamil Giovanni and how he's not good looking enough to be a politician, it kind of got under my skin because I don't really care how Poilievre looked before or how he looks now. For the general public, what works better? I mean, I think maybe the nerdy style might appeal to a more liberal base. His cooler style may be a conservative base. I don't know. It's more, he tries to come off as more working class, but it's hard for him to do because he's not really working class, I guess.
And Ethel also says, now when he took his spectacles off, his eyes revealed that he might be of Metis or Indian descent. Do you think he should come out of the closet as Aboriginal instead of posing as a fake Frenchie? I have a fake Frenchie here. Do you think? He should play that card.
Because he needs to. Canada's system is completely rigged, so he has to appeal to liberal voters, obviously, and that's why, I don't like him in a lot of ways because he has to betray some of his first principles. That being said, he had everything he needed. He had the immigrant wife from, was it Venezuela?
Or Colombia, one of those two.
He has the backstory, and he still couldn't make it work.
Yeah. He's adopted.
Everything you needed to appeal to some liberal voters, and he even compromised some of his policies.
Yeah, it's not just some, I would say.
They're not gonna vote for him. And if they're not gonna vote for him,
then stop trying to cater to them.
He'll only get a minority government at best. And it's not enough to change Canada.
And yet Canada right now is dealing with this man from Jeff Rath, not with Jeff Rath, but from Jeff Rath, quote, Carney is intentionally trying to kill the USMCA. Get it through your heads that Carney is deliberately destroying the Canadian economy so that his bosses in China can buy an entire country at pennies on the dollar, more than they already have, I would say.
Well, and this is the one good thing about Alberta independence, and I'm thinking about making a video about it. It's the one time it will actually work. You have a president in the United States that would prefer Alberta separate and have independence. Most social media platforms are controlled by U.S. firms, which are highly connected to Donald Trump.
No.
So even if they bring in censorship, I think they're not going to be able to bring in mass censorship.
I mean,
And
within
then
Canada, they can.
And then you have China on the other side that also prefers Alberta to leave so they can potentially try to grab British Columbia and the ports there.
This was because
And another reason China would prefer Alberta to separate is it creates the paradigm of having a province separate from Canada, which is very similar to having a state you leave the union. And that would be China's one way to kind of change the paradigm when it comes to the United States.
And this was because concerned Canadians said, I can't believe he had the audacity to criticize Trump on the international stage. What a mistake. Good luck getting a USMCA done. And we also recently saw Spain backtrack from their idiocy and say
they did. I didn't
a
see
little
that.
bit because of the tariff. I mean, not fully, but they did backtrack a little bit. What's her name? Caroline Levitt was talking about that this morning. But again, it's all it just becomes very clear. It's a globalist elite versus rational people.
Well, and that's the issue. You have people like Mark Carney running Europe or a lot of Europe. You're finally seeing a bit of a right-wing revolution, but Trump's having to push back against all these countries, especially within the EU. The deep states within the EU are integrated into the deep states within the United States, and they've been trying to sabotage Trump's administration since 2016, and it continues to happen.
But also from Table Salt, quote, Bank of Canada Deputy Governor Sharon Kaziki, I guess, told an audience in Oslo that interest rate hikes might be necessary. Many people might find it surprising or counterintuitive that at times monetary policy needs to be tightened when the economy is weak. Stagflation.
And this is where you own nothing and you will be happy. Could be coming. Jobs are becoming less and less available within Canada. Number one, people have some of the highest credit debt in the G7 in Canada. And I always knew about mortgages in the United States. Only when I got older did I understand how mortgages work in Canada. And it's absolutely crazy to me. In the United States, you negotiate your mortgage rate right at the beginning. So it's 20 years fixed. Or however long it is, it's fixed for the entire term of the loan for the most part. In Canada, every 5 years, it's renegotiated.
Variable, yeah.
If that goes through the roof, homes are going to be owned by the bank. All of Canada is going to be owned by the bank and then redistributed to First Nations tribes through Mark Carney, I guess.
Yeah, because private property doesn't exist anymore anyways, but keep paying the property taxes and keep paying your mortgages. That continue to spike up.
Yeah.
I think it's raining.
That's all right.
It smells like rain. Well, because people were talking about the weather over there. Here we have rain, apparently. Hadn't rained in a while. It was pretty dry here in Mexico. But from Mark Nixon, quote, CBC guest provides the sentiment of liberal supporters. Donald Trump and Israel had zero justification for starting the war with Iran. Mark Carney fully backs and supports Donald Trump. And liberals continue to be flabbergasted. And he's backtracked a little bit on that too recently.
He hasn't backtracked. I wanted to talk about this before we play it. The Canadian government, most governments put out two statements. The Canadian government put out three contradicting statements on what happened in Iran. I don't know if they think Donald Trump is only going to see the one or what's going to happen here, but you're in a trade negotiation. It's absolutely crazy, Canada's position. The first position was we're in support of it, then we're not in support of it, and then it needs to end now. So the neutral position.
The United States and Israel committed an act of aggression against the UN Charter, that the evidence supporting it was not there. There was no imminent threat. There's, as Mr. Trump said, he had some intuition there might be. And thirdly, I think it is setting a bad precedent. I mean, the one thing that I think Canadian diplomacy over the years has always understood, that our best security is in putting sort of guardrails, sort of ways of stopping big powers from throwing their weight around. And no one is.
And their best security is to put guardrails on? Is that why you're the highest country per capita donating to Ukraine billions and billions and billions of dollars, yet your northern border is completely unsecured, and yet that border is shared with Russia? That's absolutely an insane statement.
Is bigger threat right now throwing his weight around than Donald Trump in the United States and Israel.
And the notion of international law, again, doesn't work without the notion of might. And right now, the United States is one of the few countries that does have that might, while others that continue to claim international law and talk to international law don't have that power anymore.
He's got TDS, so obviously he's going to take the position he does. I don't. I actually support Trump in most things he does. In this particular strike in Iran, I don't. He doesn't have a clear outlined goal. Why are you over there? It could easily turn into a forever war. Not that it has yet, but I can say when I like something Trump does and when I don't like something Trump does. But Poilievre's in a weird situation as well, because in the interview with Trigonometry, he was asked about Iran, and it's almost like him and Carney are forced to say they agree with it.
Say the same thing. Yeah. Again, might be controlled.
Because then when they try to explain it, they can't explain it very well why they agree with it. It's just like, yes, we agree. And then they're asking a follow-up question, and they don't really... It's like you can tell they don't really support it. I don't support it, and I'll say I don't support it, period. And that's coming from somebody. It's not like I'm completely anti-war. For the most part, I fall on the side of anti-war. But when they did the in and out strike in Venezuela, I completely agree with that operation. The overall plan for the Western Hemisphere I like, but this, because it has added on benefits for a lot of countries in the Western Hemisphere, not just the United States, but when it's these foreign wars in the Middle East, it's got to stop, especially when Rubio came out with the statement that they had to do it because Israel was going to strike.
I'm not getting in a debate about this like we did yesterday. If you want to watch this debate for hours on this topic, you can go watch our live from yesterday. But I'll just say shipping lanes and oil. But okay.
We have a disagreement a little bit,
yeah.
But
from CCFR, quote, lawyer Ian Runkle of the Bailey.
And he's great, but he's a little bit dry. If you watch the whole videos, he's much better in clips.
Explains why criminals can't participate. He's a lawyer in Canada. Explains why criminals can't participate in the federal gun buyback, a program already seeing ballooning expenses and no public safety value.
This gun ban is not targeted at criminals at all. In fact, criminals are not permitted to participate. If you have a firearm unlawfully, they won't take your gun. They won't take any money. This is only aimed at the people who they know they don't have to check the gun because they know that these guns are not being used in crime. The owners of them have no intention of using them in crime. This is an incredibly expensive program that they're aiming at the least dangerous people, and they know it. They're telling us that they know it when they say, we're not doing any forensic testing. Now, if they add forensic testing to the budget, that'll eat into the amounts they pay out, because the way they've got this rigged up is they've said, here's our cap on costs, and we're paying the admin costs out first, and anything that's left over, any table scraps that are left, we'll throw them to gun owners, but we're going to do it first come, first served. Better get in line for those table scraps. The problem is that the liberals and their sort of associates have a really big appetite. If you're waiting for table scraps from that table, I wouldn't expect a whole lot.
Pause it for a minute. We'll finish the video here, but yeah, they're going after law-abiding citizens, and it's because they want to disarm the civilian population. They're not going after criminals here, but it's interesting to watch other gun buybacks in other countries, specifically the U.S. When they did a gun buyback, I think they give $100 per weapon sometimes, and so people were printing out these 3D weapons that cost like $5 to 3D print out, and then they were collecting the $100, and they would bring hundreds of these guns in. It's kind of like what happened in India when they had an infestation of snakes. So the government said, okay, we'll buy back each snake at $10 a snake or whatever price it was. So they were getting millions of snakes turned in. People started breeding snakes just to kill the snakes and turn them in.
A lot of people have asked me to comment on Caliber Magazine's recent reporting that suggests that the firearm buyback program is looking at about $25,000 per gun. Now, that's of course an insane cost. It's mostly admin costs and so forth, because they still haven't actually done the payments to the people who signed up. So what we're looking at is, of course, the usual ballooning expenses for these things and no public safety value. Now, one of the things that I think is most interesting about this is what they don't seem to be spending money on, and what you'd think that they would want to. And what I'm talking about here is forensic analysis of the firearms seized, like ballistic fingerprinting and so forth, so that they could compare these guns to see if any of them have been used in crimes, which if this was an anti-crime measure, you'd think they'd want to do. But I haven't seen reports saying that they plan to actually do this testing and this checking.
Okay, and that's good. And I don't believe in gun buybacks in the first place. That being said, if you're spending on average $25,000 per weapon, just give that to the person you're buying the weapon off.
But it's going to themselves. It's going to admin costs. And this is all just to be able to virtue signal the safety that the Liberal government is bringing to the lemmings that still believe them.
Well, I don't know why they don't tout the safety of legal gun owners in Canada, because they have some of the lowest crime rates in the entire world. Okay.
Is this in Vancouver? Looks like Vancouver.
Oh, I think that's why I might have put it. I think that's our old house across the street, maybe?
Maybe. From Glenda M. Quote, if you ever wonder how our country became the colossal mess it is today, look no further than this. Yeah, it seems recognizable.
If that's the Scotiabank, I'm not sure if it is, though.
No, I think it's on the other side by where Robson Square is.
Okay.
Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre?
We actually don't have any preference, yeah.
Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre? Who do you think is better to run Canada?
I really don't know about Canadian politics.
Did you prefer Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre? Who would you prefer, Mark
Oh,
Carney or
pause it.
Pierre Poilievre?
Yeah, this is the courthouse, so
Yeah.
we lived right on the
We
other block
saw the
over.
courthouse.
That's why. Well, one of the reasons why I put it, but this just shows how unengaged Canadians are in politics.
And why the mess is there.
And that's why this is why liberals love immigrants, because this is the kind of attitude a lot of immigrants bring in. Let's just vote liberal. They gave us our immigration.
Sorry, my English no good. Excuse me, sir. I have a quick question for you. Do you prefer Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre?
I have no idea who you're talking about.
No worries, thank you. Do you know much about Canadian politics? What's going on or anything like that?
To be honest with you, I just got out of prison. I just did 9 years, so I'm not really in.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm not like Mark Poilievre.
Pierre Poilievre is a conservative, and then Mark Carney is a liberal.
So I prefer the liberal.
Do you prefer Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre? Mark Carney. And just why, real quick? Because I think Poilievre is an idiot.
No reasoning, just lemmings, literal lemmings.
It's time.
Right by where we lived.
Yeah.
That's what we used
But we used to try to
face
go out
every
with
day.
we used to try to go out with the camera. We would even go to protests, and it's hard to get people to even
Anybody to
talk
talk
about
to you.
politics
Yeah.
at all.
And when they do, they have no idea what they're saying.
Yeah.
So,
And
again.
it's strange because if you go to the art gallery, which is right there where all the protests are, you would expect the people who are protesting, they would want to get their message out. It's completely the opposite.
Yeah, they don't. Might be because some of them or most of them are paid, so they don't want to have to talk about that.
Or don't know.
Oh, yeah, exactly. They have no idea why they're there, even. From Juno News, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand tells the Toronto Board of Trade that governments around the world are looking to Mark Carney's Davos speech as a guide for their foreign policy. Retardation in its maximum.
What we have seen is that the world, foreign ministers, leaders, governments around the world are looking to Mark Carney's speech at Davos as a guiding light for their consideration of how their foreign policy will be formulated.
You're looking to Mark Carney's speech as a guiding light for your foreign policy. You should be looking at other nations' actions, what works and what doesn't, and that should guide you, not somebody's empty words that he's driving Canada off a cliff. So now you want to follow him and drive your country off the same damn cliff.
But also, we just saw the lemmings in Vancouver, which is an example of many, many others across Canada, except Albertans that want independence. But then you have the circle of jerks, because I can't say the other word, just talking about how great they are and thinking internally, because the globalist elite still claps at them and thinking that what they're doing is the best thing in the world and continuing to portray that to the world while they tank and sink their own country.
Well, and I mean, Poilievre didn't give amazing speeches when he went on his tour, but again, they're just words, and unless he ever gets into office, people aren't going to be able to follow him.
Yeah, essentially unenforceable words.
It was Poilievre's speeches were far better because they were actually based on reality and what other countries are doing to actually get to the goals that they want. Mark Carney's speech was extremely hollow, and if you follow that, you're going to drive your country off a cliff, just like Canada's going off that same cliff.
More insanity. I still continue to laugh when I hear people say that Canada and the US are at war. From Desmond Lane, quote, "This Canadian minister wants a ceasefire between the United States and Canada and calls for peace. Do you think this is really the stance Canada should take when it comes to the Middle East conflict?"
Oh, God. Yeah, and Jasmine Lane's great as well. She's from independent media from Canada too.
Well, listen, as I say, we've been following the situation in Iran for quite a while, carefully. We're getting just-in-time updates on the situation in the Middle East now. And the Prime Minister and the government decided from the beginning of this that we would support this incursion. But we're also calling for a diplomatic end to it. We very much would prefer to see peace and a ceasefire. That's what my colleague, Minister Anand, is driving forward now with her colleagues around the world. And so we'll see where this takes us.
And this is one of 3 different statements the federal government gave out with 3 different positions on what Donald Trump's doing right now.
Canadians know this is a difficult, complicated, and unfortunate situation. We would all rather see peaceful dialogue. But we have a situation now where 2 countries, 2 sovereign countries, have decided to prosecute a war. Canada's not involved in that war at this time.
Because they weren't informed. They were also complaining that Canada was not informed about
You can't give Canada information even if they are ally because they show they have deep ties to Iran. So even though I don't agree with what's going on in Iran, and this is one of the few times I deviate from Trump, I will say he did make the right call not telling the Canadian government.
They also complained when the Mexico thing happened and the involvement of the U.S. And they also asked, why weren't we informed? Again, because of the ties you have and because who knows who you're going to go blabbing into.
Yeah. Well, and they have intelligence ties, and it was put in their last contract with China to share intelligence. So that's why you're not being informed.
Exactly. Do you want me to read comments or continue?
How many more what story are we on?
A few. Oh. We're in Marizalaya.
Bring it up on screen really quick?
I'll just read it.
Okay.
From Marizalaya, quote, people in Vancouver need to be studied, and I agree. All of Vancouver, Richmond, and Burnaby is now under Musqueam, an Aboriginal title. They all said, yes, take it all. We want to be virtuous. We were so glad.
Oh, there, I found it.
At this point, we may as well hope that Skynet will take over. And, I mean, they're just letting it happen, essentially. And yes, somebody please study them.
And if you think this can't happen in your province, I think this is going to happen across all of British Columbia. And all of British Columbia actually has First Nations have declared right over every single piece of British Columbia. So soon enough, I think BC will be gone. And I think they want to bring that across the rest of the nation. You better, you need to cut the cord now if you're in Alberta.
They could just cut this bit off and then cut this bit off. And then again, the rest is conservative. Cut this bit, and everything else is.
It's funny because there's a little blue bit there that's actually North Vancouver as well. That's conservative.
Where?
Yeah.
Well, I can't zoom in more. Up here?
If you look at the other map.
Oh, sorry.
That says go up the Vancouver map right there. Greater Vancouver
area. This one.
So a lot of it's conservative, actually.
I mean, yeah. Aside from the insanity that is the Lower Mainland.
Okay, let's go into the next.
I get distracted.
One more article, and then we're going to read comments. So if you have any comments, leave them now.
From Jamil Giovanni, quote, just landed in Halifax. Our message is clear. The decline of our country is the result of bad choices made by people in power. With your help, better choices and better outcomes are possible.
And I like Jamil Giovanni, but why is he in Saskatchewan with this message? He understands Alberta's going for independence and Saskatchewan is as well. They're trying to keep those national votes national, and they're just not going to happen.
Restore the North is going coast to coast. We just landed in Halifax. Yesterday, we kicked things off on the Rock in St. John's, and our message is clear. The decline of our country has been a choice made by people in positions of power. For over 10 years now, bad policies have produced bad outcomes, and we believe that we can choose to make things better. And that's where the young people of this great country come in. We need young people to get involved, and that is our message as we travel across this great country. Look forward to our event in Dalhousie next, and we'll be in Saskatchewan tomorrow.
It's almost like he's talking directly to the Alberta's independence movement there. We need to take control of our future. The federal government has betrayed us for this long. Yeah, I agree with all that. And the solution is for Alberta independence and Saskatchewan independence, not the Conservative Party of Canada at this point.
Yes.
It's just too far gone for them to even fix it. Okay, let's read a few comments if you got them.
Oh, Tal says, and I think Tal is no longer here, so I can't respond, but Tal says, have another commitment to mod on a Gutfeld stream, so gotta say, toodles, thanks for another stream. And thank you for being here, Tal. Thank you for all your comments. And also thank you so much. And I think I said it earlier today, but thank you so much for reposting the stream on X. And we got to get on that too ourselves.
Well, and thank you for everybody that has been tuning into our live streams with Alberta Independence. I know we cover it a lot, but it is important. And it is important we try to build the channel now and beat the censors because when they start bringing in mass censorship on this issue, I want to have as big as an audience as possible to get information out.
Yes. And Joe says, I respect Trump, but think ripping up a trade deal he signed is dumb.
Read it again.
I respect Trump, but think ripping up a trade deal he signed is dumb.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it a lot of different ways. Also, like the way Canada always frames it is they're not tariffing the United States, but the United States is tariffing them is just an outright lie. But yeah, Trump did cut that deal, and I think it threw a huge monkey wrench into it. But with the Canadian government going the direction it is, it's a liability on its north because of the intelligence ties it has with the CCP. And this is not some dark intelligence tie or some conspiracy theory. This is outright put in the last trade contract they had with China. And now they're inviting CCP members to join the Canadian military. They're having CCP security agencies literally secure mining and oil sites in Canada.
Sites, yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. You're training CCP members on American fighter jets within Canada and training them on cold weather combat. I mean, could you do any more? Yeah. I would agree ripping up a contract would be stupid if Pierre Poilievre was in office, because at least you have somebody that's aligned with you ideologically. But Mark Carney is so far off the deep end, you just can't trust. At this point, it's coming to a point you can't trust Canada.
And Rafa says, oh, you're still here. Hello again. Hello. Thank you for being here, Rafa, again. And Joe also says, I did the math. Canadians buy $6,000 per person per year from the US. Americans spend less than $1,000 per person per year. That is a trade Trump is mad about.
Yeah, they can't spend a lot. They can't get their products into Canada either because they're the massive tariffs that have been put on there for decades. I mean, there's a lot I think Trump is pissed about. He's trying to recalibrate all the pieces on the chessboard. They're losing power right now, and if he doesn't do something, which he's obviously is, I don't agree with everything he's doing, but a lot of the things he's doing, he's doing well. And if Trump wasn't in office right now and Harris had won that election, free speech would be gone at this point. The only reason Musk and these other social media giants can even stand up is because of the cover Trump is giving them. Pushing back on gender ideology, pushing back on all kinds of things, hate speech laws. I mean, you look at the EU and the UK, I know a lot of people in Canada might not look so much into international politics. We run international politics shows every Tuesday, and we had been running it 4 or 5 days a week for a long time. What's happening in the EU, Canada, Australia, they would have gone even farther if Trump wasn't in there to kind of push back at this point.
But I think what Joe was saying is that Canadians buy a lot more from the US imported into Canada than Americans buy from Canadians.
Yeah. Well, but Canada doesn't manufacture a lot. That's the issue.
And it's also way more expensive because of all the restrictions they've imposed upon themselves. So it becomes a moot point if you want to buy from Canada because it becomes an impossible price.
There's a lot of products in Canada that are actually tariffed from leaving the country, which is crazy. That's the Canadian government preventing their own companies from having success. And a lot of Canadian people that open businesses in Canada, once that business becomes successful, they move it to the United States because of the market.
The impositions. And Joe also says, I meant to add on Canadian goods.
Yeah.
Do you want me to read our
Canada is there for natural resources primarily, but they're unwilling to kind of mature those industries. They already have the technology. They already have everything they need to mature those industries other than invest in it. Ideologically, Carney is unwilling to go down that path.
And do you want me to read our UMBLE or no?
Read 2 comments from there, and then we'll finish up the stories on YouTube.
Ethel says, guys, you can't expect federal or federal adjacent politicians to support Alberta independence. If Alberta becomes independent, Canada is done, leaving nothing for the feds to govern. They will never support it. And that's kind of where I stand.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's why I say it's understandable that they don't.
Yeah, you also have to understand that Federal Conservative Party, whether it's Smith or Pierre Poilievre, are going to do the best that they can to hopefully build a safety net in case the independence vote doesn't go the right way. I think the vote's going to go the right way. It's everything else on that list we showed at the beginning of the show, where if Mark Carney has a majority government, is he going to be able to derail it by overstepping his political power?
And Ethel also says, Pierre Poilievre and Carney are twins and both believe that all of us are incredibly stupid. Well, not going to lie, some of us are actually stupid because there's still many people who believe that Pierre Poilievre is a conservative.
Yeah, and I think...
That's why you said
I see a lot of similarities between him and Trudeau, actually, in the way he governs, where he's only willing to take a stance once the polls say it's okay.
And Joe says, I'm guessing about Canadians in America, says we are 11% of their population.
Yeah. Oh,
and probably growing.
I don't think they're 11% because most of them are immigrants. So like, it's like, yeah.
But people that leave Canada to go to the U.S.
Leave to go to the U.S. Yeah.
Okay, continuing on. From Mark Nixon, after being ranked best in the world, they got rid of him. Welcome to Canada. Only the most incompetent get to keep their jobs. And it says, after a bumpy ride, federal budget watchdog steps down with some praise. OECD ranks Canada's Office of Parliamentary Budget as the best in the world.
And this was a crazy call because the way the Liberals are spinning right now, and this is the guy that's kind of overseeing that, he was doing a great job. We were clipping him a lot. He was getting international press. The problem was he wasn't a paid puppet. He would actually come out and say when something was wrong. And now that they got rid of him, they have nobody to oversee anything. So it's going to get even worse.
And yes, from Mark Nixon as well, Canada went from the budget will balance itself to no budget, then a late budget when most of the year was completed. Now, zero budget review or scrutiny. This is a full-blown crisis. Canada is a banana republic.
And this is the same, going into the same thing. Yeah. He was actually one of the federal employees that were doing a great job. And I think bipartisanly, when he would say something bad about what the Liberal Party was doing, he would still do it very conservatively. So, I thought he walked a great line. It's a shame they got rid of him.
And now, with no budget officer installed, the office itself cannot publish any reports or accept new requests from parliamentarians to scrutinize federal finances.
Go figure.
There you go. Yeah, it all has an answer once you start questioning it. But also from Marty up north, quote, I don't know what's more pathetic, the Liberal gun buyback program or the CBC's This Hour Has 22 Minutes lame attempt to mock it.
I actually like this commercial. I had a different opinion than Marty here, which usually I align with him, but let's watch the commercial. I found it funny.
Thank you for coming, everyone. Your Liberal government is buying back banned guns. Let's see the newest haul. Ooh, why did we get such a big table? All right, that takes us to a grand total of 5. All for the low, low price of, I'd rather not say. Now, does anyone else in the community want to sell us their gun? Please, you will get scene points.
Yeah, I got guns to sell.
Thank you.
Right here.
Does anyone have actually dangerous things they want to sell?
Can I get my gun back?
And I realize this is probably going to get dinged, but we'll continue to play it, but we're going to have to stop it every 30 seconds.
No, why?
Because no one listens to me anymore.
Well, you can't. We do the buyback, not you.
I want to buy back.
You can't buy back the buyback.
Well, I think we should be able to buy back the buyback.
Well, you buy back the buyback, then there is no buyback.
Oh, buy back this.
I want to buy back too. My gun's got a sentimental value. My grandpa on his deathbed.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear.
And pause it for a moment. And it's interesting they would even hit this and make fun of it in the way they did because there's a lot of truth. But they're trying to make the people that own firearms in Canada look stupid.
Yes, of course.
And I think that's the ultimate thing they want to do. But
that's CBC.
But a lot of things they are saying are true. The buyback isn't freaking working, but maybe they want to bring that to the public's attention too. This thing isn't working. We're going to have to use more force.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Well, you can't.
Please, I need it. The Hill people are back.
You're going to have to learn how to deal with them peacefully.
Looks like someone ain't never dealt with the Hill people before.
This guy.
Does anyone not regret selling us their gun?
Me.
Thank you. Why?
Because I was able to use the money to buy a bigger, scarier gun.
Oh.
So I can... that kind of thing. Regular stuff.
Okay. Muscles, get on up here. We'll buy your biceps.
We made the big time, girls.
And pause it again. I just want to make sure we don't get dinged. Okay, you can finish it up.
Let's get those numbers up on the board. Why'd we use such a long board?
The Liberal Party of Canada, spending money to keep you.
And it is one of those SNL skits.
I thought it worked against them just as much as it might work for them.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because there's too much truth in a lot of what they're saying. Your buyback isn't working, and a lot of Liberals are actually want firearms as well. At least in the United States, you're seeing that transition now because they have TDS and they don't like Trump. They want their firearms. With all the propaganda the Liberal government's giving about, we're going to be invaded, you're surprised. Well, why would we give up our guns at that point if you're a Liberal as well? Okay.
But now also from Rebel News and Tamara Ugolini, quote, she reports how the Carney Liberals are forcing through a high-speed rail project linking Quebec City to Toronto despite the financial environmental and personal risks associated with the project? Could it be that there's maybe some involvement or some people that are connected to this project that also have connections to the government?
And these are the last three stories
As it's
before we go over to RUMBLE.
Our current tracks are grinding to a halt, yet Ottawa is ready to blow roughly $90 billion on Alto, this brand new corridor slicing through Ontario's best farmland.
I've honestly, on Friday alone, I got 2 or 3 calls of people in tears. And that's with respect to the high-speed rail and the concern that it's causing in Eastern Ontario, and I assume as well in some of the rural areas of Quebec.
That land acquisition phase would begin almost immediately.
Our current tracks are grinding to a halt, yet Ottawa...
Now, why is it costing $90 billion to build a high-speed rail? But even
because
that...
they're getting certain people to build it.
But if you look at Newsom, they started with a big number like that, and it got 10 times bigger. These high-speed rails...
And it's still not done in California.
...are pits of corruption in Western governments, and that's the thing.
Same as housing and the whole homeless population programs that just end up giving money to spouses or friends or family members of those that continue to enact them, like happened in Vancouver with Atira.
Well, I'm fine with a high-speed rail if you could actually get it done for a reasonable price that you say. But...
And now I'm guessing you just put this in because it's funny. From Wide Awake Media. I mean, it's ridiculous and sad, but it's from Wide Awake
This is the
Media.
ideology of Canada as well.
Quote, vegan climate activist demands a transition away from animal agriculture to a plant-based food system in a bid to stop the climate crisis, saying we're asking the government to support farmers and fishing communities in transition to a plant-based food system because we know that animal agriculture is the leading cause of the climate crisis.
Well,
it's the leading excuse.
What makes this clip good is Piers Morgan actually pushes back a bit.
Why would chucking paint all over Big Ben persuade someone like me to give up meat?
Yeah, so as you and your viewers probably know, we're in a climate and ecological emergency at the moment. And so what we're doing is we're asking the government to support farmers and fishing communities in a transition to a plant-based food system because we know that animal agriculture is a leading cause of the climate crisis.
Why can't you let me...
She seems like she's well-trained, well-trained vegan, but she says it like it's a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But there's been so much counter information given out. People see through this. So when she speaks so matter-of-factly, she looks ridiculous.
Yep.
You just get on with eating meat and you eat your gruel and we'll all go home happy.
Because we know animal farming and fishing are a leading cause of the climate crisis.
And we know having a strictly vegan diet is bad for you as well.
Do you believe in the climate crisis?
Yes.
Well, the animal agriculture, farming and fishing is a leading cause of the climate crisis.
You know what's also a leading cause of climate crisis? Planes which carry vast amounts of your avocados and your almonds from California and fly them thousands of miles to your table here.
Piers Morgan usually tries to ding for censorship, but let's keep going.
In your vegan cafes. And then they also go in trucks. And that is an environmental hazard too. So you're not only are you killing billions of bees, you're destroying the planet. And yet you have the brass neck to sit here in between munching your almonds and your avocados and start preaching to me about how virtuous you are about not killing animals and saving the planet. I'm like, hang on, you're destroying the planet and you're killing billions of bees.
And also, I mean,
why is everybody talking about bees? Candace Owens talking about bees as well.
Well, he's talking about bees because bees are very important for pollination and for actual plants to continue to grow. But when you just cultivate.
Were you being possessed?
Cultivate. I wanted to say it in Spanish, but when you just cultivate one crop, then you're taking away the diversity that actually helps bees continue to function and pollinate as they should. But I will also say, I continue to see, and this is encouraging, actually, at least in my opinion, it's encouraging to see that things and foods like Impossible Foods, that fake meat, and the other one's Impossible. What's the other name of the Impossible Foods? And
it doesn't matter.
Okay, the two leading brands of fake meat that are just heavily processed ingredients and not good for you at all are actually losing a lot of money right now.
Well, no, they're going out of business, and so are the cricket farms, which is good to see. People just didn't buy into this ridiculousness. Before we get into the last story, we are going to go to RUMBLE after this story. So join us over there because I got 3 or 4 stories that were too hot for YouTube that we go to RUMBLE. We're also trying to grow our audience over there because if another jibby jab era happens or censorship comes into Canada and the channel gets canceled on YouTube, we want to make sure we have an alternative platform. And YouTube has had a record of standing up for free speech and not canceling people. So that's why we chose that platform.
We said YouTube. RUMBLE has had a record.
RUMBLE
YouTube doesn't.
is our alternative platform.
Yes, but this last one, and we did kind of talk about it earlier from Ryan Gertison, quote, record amounts of Canadians are lining up at food banks, and Carney hands out $100 million in scholarships to Indian students, which they had also said that they didn't want to, encourage. From CIC News, quote, Canada announces $100 million in scholarships for Indian students under new education measures.
Well, and let's remember what the Indian politician came to Canada said the other day. He says, Canada only has 42 million people and has so much landmass. You can take all the Indians. And he was serious about it. And we know there's been documents released. They want to increase the population of Canada to 100 million. Carney's trying to pretend like this isn't happening, but he's already approved everything to make up for lost time and flood Canada with immigrants as soon as Trump is out of office. Actually, 1 year before he starts ramping up again in 2027.
And let's see if I can read this comment and YouTube doesn't get angry. I'm going to have to censor it a bit. But Moto says, Canada belongs to a certain people from a certain religion with a star, I will say. Why do you think Carney sent $2 billion somewhere? He is 100 in PDF files.
Oh,
I have to say it like that.
100%. We'll talk more about that when we get to RUMB. You could have you could reread the comment on RUMB.
Yes, I'll reread it on RUMB. And Joe says Canadians know that Carney is all about Brookfield and won't give a crap and doesn't give a crap about Canada. Nothing we can do. Too many dumb liberals in Canada that keep voting for the destruction of our country. But you also saw the quality and the type of voters that continue to vote liberal or have no idea what they're doing, but then they do go to the ballot because they think it's important, but they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, and it's
lemmings.
Well, no, and it's also this mass immigration that's happening. It's not just for GDP. The main reason is to change the voting bloc. If they only had native citizens of the country, whether that's the UK, Canada, even if they're liberal, a lot of them are more traditional liberal, they wouldn't vote for these crazy policies. They're too far left. They're too progressive for people to actually vote for. So they need to bring a new population in that's unaware, unpolitically astute, and will just vote for you because you gave me my immigration.
And I don't want to lose it, and I'm scared to lose it, essentially.
Yeah.
Rafa says, going to the VIP live, that's what he calls RU and BLE. And also says, fun fact, the Rumble stream, I will say, or VIP live is some seconds ahead of YouTube. So if you want to watch us a few seconds ahead, go over to RU and BLE.
Time traveling.
Time travel, exactly. Time travel to RU and BLE. But thank you so much for all your comments today here on YouTube. And again, let's continue the conversation right now on RU and BLE.
Well, and I will say before we do leave, I'm 100% positive censorship is going to be coming in on this issue. Our entire channel revolves around this issue, especially up until the vote. So if you're not subscribed, please do so. It really, really does help, especially because the threat of censorship with Mark Carney will be coming soon.
Yes, so see you over there in a few seconds.